How's it going, everyone? It looks like it connected. I always have to check this because it's so laggy now. Yes, it appears we are live. How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses on YouTube.com with your favorite show host, Still.
Venerian.
And Volatile, I'm here to bring you latest news and games commentary for the week that was, or I mean, in theory, I guess we are going to do that, but we didn't do a lot of planning for the show, and I don't recall anything of note happening all week, so
It's
I
the
guess we're going to play it
same.
by ear.
Yeah, it's the same fires that have been burning for the last few weeks.
Yeah.
I presume that, like, I don't know, like, when it's in an on-the-ground situation, if you're working at one of these businesses that is sort of, like, under siege from the results of their poor decision-making, like Ubisoft or Blizzard, like, I don't know if it gets better week to week as time goes by, or if it gets a lot worse the longer you get stuck in that situation without being able to resolve it.
It's hard to say. A lot of the insiders who come out and actually talk about it really do paint a grim picture, though.
Yeah, but anyway, if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw. You can join us in our Discord server, which you can get to by clicking on the link provided in the show description on the show archive on YouTube.
Yes, indeed. And before we jump into weeks, part of the reason there is no news this week is because it is a little bit away from the circus that is the American elections. Early voting is currently ongoing, and the news cycle has just been taken up with American news where I'm at and the election news, and so it's very hard to get anything that doesn't have Trump or Kamala on it.
Yeah, we've just come through a state election as of this weekend here, so we've had a change in state government now, so we'll see if anything comes of that.
Far away from
the rest of the Australian news cycle is basically people from all over the political spectrum asking, okay, how do you fire a senator?
Out of a cannon.
Out of a cannon, preferably. But yeah, that's been a...
Fern, I don't think you got far enough away. You got to get a bit further to reset him.
Ah, okay. I thought I was far enough away. I've reset him down there before. So yeah, I'm glad that's all over, and now we can actually talk about something other than the election.
Yeah, that will not be the case for the U.S., as everybody knows. We're always a circus.
Well, you guys have been talking about the election for 12 years now.
Yeah, it has been a particular circus with the current media environment. Yeah, it's just been a mess. On that note, me and Vol are in talks to figure out an MPP that we'll try and get out before the elections are over. If possible, that's really time crunchy though. If not, we'll do a post-election analysis of everything going on. We have a Google Doc made that just has the first draft of topic outlines on it. It does not have any links or anything in it. It's going to take quite a few hours of work to get that together and several more hours to record, but we have discussed doing an MPP for this.
It doesn't have to be absurdly long. Like, in a certain sense, I think that the upcoming US election is one of the least interesting elections in history relative to its importance. Because basically electoral politics in the United States is over at this point, is what it looks like to me.
Yeah, we'll discuss all that. But got the roll. Oh, you guys alone and helping me. Got the. How am I bopping this thing so hard? I guess we can double barber it to make it more interesting instead of me just whopping it on Mualani.
Or Barbara's fixing that.
I'm afraid my Barbara is not quite leveled enough for that.
You should really level Barbara. She is.
I think I might have leveled her up, but I haven't done anything with her skills or anything like that.
Steve, the immortal idol of Mondstadt.
Yes, you have alternate Barbara too.
I do have swimsuit Barbara.
I've only got the normie kind.
All right. Guaba has been leveled up.
Now let's get you back up. I've been killing this guy a lot in my world too, because Guaba and Bennett were the last characters I level up. When I mentioned last week, there's enough resources for 1 4-star every banner cycle ish. Get them leveled up and kinda sorta online. Bennett was my choice this last time because he's just with as many random combat challenges they throw in this game, it's just too obnoxious not to have that tool in the box.
Yeah. Like,
I'm
a
conserving
fairly
resources.
fairly big on-field heal, even though it'll never get you to 100%, and a really chunky buff. It's like, even if you throw Bennett out, he throws his ultimate
Well-
down, and then that's it.
Well,
Which is what he does most of the time.
Yeah, the reason he's in particular stupid good is because with Zhangling in particular is because Zhangling's Pyro Tornado snapshots all the buffs that are on her when she does it. So she keeps
Yeah.
the Bennett buff for the entire duration of her ult, regardless of where she goes. Soak that.
Well,
soak
this
that
is
fire away. This is Barbara.
this is 3 in sync Barbaras, or roughly in sync.
I
I
started.
don't think my Barbara has gear, so
Yeah. Let's just come here, Kanich. You're not the best one, but you're useful to have for movement at least. Even though he doesn't do a whole lot of damage in this situation.
at least we can't get frozen.
That's true.
All them blooms. So yeah, we'll try
Alright.
to get an MPP out. I don't have a time frame for it. I will see what Vol's schedule's like. I haven't talked to him at all about it over voice. We've just exchanged a few messages and set up the Goog doc. So we'll try and get it out as soon as we can. Depending on when it comes out, it'll be, if it's before or after the election, be pretty obvious what topics how we're gonna cover it. And I'll post the link in the Discord server, and we'll host it on Rumble because, as usual, we cannot talk about the stuff that we need to talk about when it comes to elections on YouTube. So that'll be out soon, TM, assuming Vol doesn't get deathly ill again, like when we were setting up the last one.
Yeah, you need a voice in order to do a podcast, it turns out.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's in the pipeline. And other than that, we've all been fairly busy this week for various reasons, and a whole lot of Ho-Yo stuff happened that came out this week, but none of us have got to anywhere close to all of it, in no small part because Vol has to unlock it by doing Sumeru.
Yeah,
there's a whole patch zone of content that is standing between me and the story being coherent according to Ho-Yo's own prescriptions.
Got your buddy
Whoopsie.
with you. I pull my.
You saw nothing. Just saying. So I guess we'll jump into my week, and first big thing of my week is being bushfires because Australia during the summer. Yeah. So the last few days, particularly, we had a bushfire that got really close to town, like within about 10 kilometers. So things got a bit panicky here, and everything is still very smoky.
Yeah, you sent me that, and you sent me the map. And
Yeah.
so they say bad things come in threes, but they don't necessarily have to happen to you. They can happen in your periphery. So the first bad thing that happened that evening was my sister totaled her car, and I had to go deal with that. The second bad thing was you told me your town was burning down. And I'm like, oh no, the last shoe is going to drop. But thankfully, Vol came in and saved me when he got jury duty.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had jury duty come up a couple of times, and I've been able to get out of it both times.
Traditionally, you have been able to get out of it, but apparently, according to the people I've talked to these days, because so many people are getting out of it, they just reject most whatchamacallits. They reject most applications to escape it. I have gotten my superior to write a letter to the Ministry of Justice to excuse me from it for at least the Christmas season, because the court case was supposed to last for 2 weeks starting on December the 9th. And that's end of year crunch time.
Yeah.
And I've already approved the work roster, including all the leave people for Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know
So-
this guy could drop 5-star relics as well.
So if I'm not there, basically things will disintegrate. And my boss's tactic was to basically use the COVID designation of us as an essential business for things like water compliance to justify why I have to be on site. So hopefully I'll get some bites with that, because my life will become extremely hard if I'm stuck doing jury duty. There's a high chance that if I do end up doing that, I'm going to have to, like, when court is no longer in session, rush to work and then work for like 6 hours into the night just to make sure things don't fall apart. Like,
Yeah,
it
you
will
don't
be-
want to do that.
It will be very, very bad for me if I've got to do it. So yeah, I
Yeah.
need to get out of it. I've applied not to have it cancelled, but to have it deferred, because there's a much higher chance they'll grant that. And if I can have it just deferred till next year when people come back from leave, we might be able to manage it.
Right. So,
So, yeah, I haven't actually had a jury duty pop up on my end recently, so I'm probably due for it again.
man, I had it recently, and me and every other juror in that room wanted to kill the judge and all the people in the courthouse, because they called us in on day one, and then didn't even bother bringing us into the courtroom before the judge until the next day.
Oh yeah, that's going to be very common.
And all of us were pissed off.
My boss took one look at the letter and said, like, just wear your Nazi uniform. He didn't say a Nazi uniform. He said your Nazi uniform. And I'm like,
That's what?
and I'm like, what?
Surely you have one.
Do you have one?
If not,
Must be like Southerners in ghost costumes.
yeah.
Okay.
But I said you could borrow my spooky ghost costume. It is around Halloween. It'd be too hard to find.
Yeah, Halloween is apparently a thing trying to be here.
So, but who needs spooky fake dangers when your town's on fire? How did that go?
Yeah. So thankfully, all our local fire and rescue teams were very good at what they do. They managed to stop the fire kind of just south of town on the other side of some old mining spoil heaps, so it didn't get any closer to town. But that said, the south side of town was evacuated, kind of a soft evacuation, because there's also a fuel depot over there, and they're kind of worried about that going bang. But that said, there's been a couple of mine exploration teams out there that have lost all their equipment. A couple of cattle station homesteads have been isolated, though thankfully no one's been seriously injured or even at all hurt by this fire, thankfully.
Have they established if this is of natural origin or not?
From what we can tell, it started out in the middle of nowhere, about 100 kilometers away. It actually traveled 80 kilometers in a day, which kind of tells you everything you need to know about the how dry things are here.
Well, you do live on
Are you
Mars.
officially in a drought state right now, or
We've been
is
in
it
a drought
considered to be
state for the
okay?
last we've been in a drought state for the last 15 years.
Drought
We've
states
had
in
rains.
are drought states a thing they use just as a political leverage tool over there, or do they actually mean you haven't got much rain the past 30 years or whatever?
Yeah, both.
Because over
I mean,
here we were in one for 20
everything
years.
Everything is a political football for sure, but they've probably at some point in the past set an arbitrary annual rainfall.
It's not an annual rainfall. It's consistent rainfall over a period, like I think 3 years. And we've had 1 year where we've gotten a lot and everything's flooded, but that rain just kind of washed away all the top soil, and that was about it.
Did
And
it
then the
flood as
following-
well?
Yes. And then the following year, we get nothing. So we've had years where you need to kind of have that proper, consistent rainfall in order to actually get over the drought classification and have things grow properly. So
Is
right
there
now,
is there an ongoing debate regarding things like like the cloud seeding tech they use in Dubai and that kind of thing?
Not that I've heard of. There has been constant talk. Actually, it's mostly being spearheaded by the Qatar Party, but of the Bradfield project, which is a massive network of dams and irrigation to basically turn the old inland sea into massive amounts of farmland. But that's a serious investment, and the moment you mention dams, then all hell breaks loose.
Chairman dams.
Well, every time anybody says dam now, everybody thinks like Chinese villages and the Three Gorges project.
Yeah.
It's like not every dam has to be like that, you know.
It's like, you kind of gone the extreme, but ultimately it's like they'll find the pink buttocks frogged or something like that, and suddenly we got to conserve its habitat.
I don't want to hear things about conserving habitats from the country that introduced the cane toad.
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed in a lot of places. So yeah, it's the whole thing is basically the biggest political football around here too. So it just kind of gets kicked down the line.
If you listen to Australians, they'll tell you that New Zealand would have a really great possum fur industry.
I mean, you do have the possums.
We've got plenty of possums, yes. They were introduced under the assumption that there would be a fur industry growing out of having them here. Because apparently they like New Zealand a lot.
They really do. They got no predators.
Our possums here go to where they belong whenever they can, and then get stuck in there and die. And that is the trash can.
Our possums are like the size of an extremely large cat.
Yes, and they scream.
Ours aren't quite that big, but they can get pretty big.
They have massive claws.
Yeah. So yeah, that whole ordeal has been fun, dealing with the fire and dealing with the people from the stations coming in and getting drunk. I don't know what's wrong with people. Honestly, there's an emergency situation. Everyone should be kind of just keeping calm and keeping on the situation. But no,
hell no,
no. Let's go and get absolutely smashed.
That is the way that people are going to deal with that crap.
No, hell no. Yeah. But yeah.
People being dumb, people being people.
People being dumb is, in fact, people being people.
Yes.
Anywho, that's largely over now. The fire has... it's not being put out because bushfires like that don't get put out. But you can kind of just cordon them off.
They just go into remission like cancer.
Yes.
You just divert it away and let it continue on its path until it gets past you and has burned everything that could bring it back, and then just let it go on its merry way until it peters out.
Unfortunately, also like cancer, they do have a nasty habit of flaring up and making things a lot worse. But yeah, like we've got the people who do manage bushfires in Australia. They're absolute heroes. We've got to say that. But they've got this down to a science. So by the time things were really getting a little bit dicey from the towards the town here, there was water bombing helicopters and planes and fire trucks all over the place. Emergency crews flying across from Townsville, and it's massive group effort.
It seems like every region of the world has a disaster they specialize in for their most common disaster, but then whenever that type of disaster is not the type of disaster that's currently going on, things just go to pot.
Yep.
Like down here, they're really good with tornadoes.
I'm so glad we don't need to deal with tornadoes.
Yeah, your earth comes up to swallow y'all. Our sky comes down to murder us.
Yes.
But in Florida, they're really good with dealing with hurricanes. But if you flip the two, it doesn't go so good.
Yeah. Like our rescue teams are really, really good at both fire management and flood. But the political cleanup and the financing afterward, not quite so much.
Well, that's politics. That's not the.
That's politics.
That's not the rescue team.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't know, always
the
got-
main reason we had such bad issues in New Zealand when when Christchurch had an earthquake is that fault had been silent for so long. Nobody was really expecting it to do anything. There weren't really any signs or anything like that. If you look at our other cities, like if you look at Wellington, the buildings literally just flex like rubber if the earth shakes because the entire city is built to handle it. But
Mhm.
Christchurch was the one exception. All of the buildings there were really, really old because there'd never been any issues.
Yeah. The old stone ones.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Most of them didn't make it.
Okay, let me see. I need 8. How many feathers do you need to go from 70 to 80?
How many talent or how many character ascension materials?
Yeah.
For 4 stars, let me.
You just go to the press the right direction pad. Right direction pad when you go to just press right direction pad. Yeah, now you can look at any of them.
So you need 12. Also, Vol
Okay.
probably enjoys having my stream for the sake of stream quality. I should probably kill that because I bet that's doing horrible things to the YouTube quality.
All right. Well, I've got enough there to do one of them, either Bennett or Guava.
Okay, so
Okay.
let's get it enough for you to get them both to 80. You don't have specialties yet, but
No, and I still need plenty of the gems too.
yeah, gems are going to be a pain. That dust.
Thankfully,
no shortcut for gems. You just got to have dust or gems.
Yeah, I strongly recommend buying out the shop supply of. You go to Paimon Bargain, Stardust Exchange, Dust of Azoth.
Yeah,
it's a green item. Just buy out 1 month's entire stack of that crap because it's
yeah, so you can upgrade them.
They have started introducing off element bosses. Lonen's Geo, her boss drops not Electro and Anemo. Also, there's dual element bosses that don't drop all of one element.
That's rude.
In Zelonen's case, it's both.
Oh, joy. I haven't even started leveling Shalonen, and I actually pulled her, so there's that.
Right. So Fern is the embodiment of the desire sensor. You know how me and Ball are making all these pull plans and trying to gauge our risk to our wallets versus how much primos we got and all that crap. Fern just seems to get on YOLO pulls, solo YOLO pulls no less.
Well, these weren't soloed. This was a 10 pull, but I was kind of sort of aiming for Shalonen because she's just so good. You kind of want to have her in your back pocket even if you don't use her straight away.
She will be on every.
The principle is the same as someone like Kazuha.
Yeah.
She will be on every single meta team from now until the game is over that you can use her as a support.
Yeah, like I would not put her on a Clorinda team because she'll just obliterate your bond of life and reduce your damage to zilch.
Yeah, but I think I can pull the characters like that because I don't care. It's like, if I get it, great. If I don't, that's not the end of the world. I'll just make do with what I got.
You are fine until you start planning for pulls, and that's when it gets you.
That's when things go, and that's why I will never see the Pyro Archon.
This has been the way with me in Star Rail too, where I got every character on just YOLO pulls that I rolled on for Pinacone, so Sparkle and Acheron. But the second I started pulling for planning pulls, I had to at least pull the 50-50 on everything.
Yeah, I didn't plan to pull for Farina. Her banner just came up, and I was like, should be good. And then I got two of her.
So that's the key to winning gacha is you don't care.
It really is.
Same thing happened with Burnice. Like I was totally lukewarm on Burnice because I didn't have anything like the resources required to actually build her up. And
yeah,
I pulse.
Like I wanted to get Burnice because honestly, I kind of really like her design. But the game just said no.
Computer says no.
Computer says no.
But it happened with Mulan for me too. coming back with very, very few resources. She just decided to show up.
By contrast, I was absolutely put through the ringer for Caesar, who I hadn't planned
Yeah.
for but really wanted, because like I had not made any plans to get Caesar, and when I tried her out in the demo, like I really, really enjoyed the playstyle. And so I like, no, I'm going all in for this character, and the gacha absolutely put me through the freaking ringer for it.
Yeah.
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 That's why I got Kick Doggo as well.
Oh yeah.
It's 'cause-
Well, at least you got Kick
Yeah.
Dog. For you, that's you might actually play him.
I might actually play Kick Doggo because, I mean, kicking butlers is always awesome.
You have never had the same level of aversion to icky boys or furries that me and Paul do.
Yeah.
Serethus just makes it all so much worse. I wish he would stop.
What? Oh no, cat. Hello, it's awake. Oh, and apparently there's a multiplayer log. I never knew that.
The cat
So
expects you to present yourself for inspection.
Presented himself for inspection and for getting in the way. One day they will create a keyboard where a cat will not be the only creature that will find all the hotkeys.
Remember, if you hunt the boss and turn on Barbara's song, it does a very little bit of AoE damage.
Is it really worth doing it though? You kind of get that.
The cats
You kinda
actually
get
like sleeping on keyboards, or they just like getting in the way. Like if you put a keyboard on the floor, will the cat go and sleep on it?
No, because it's not in the way then. Anywho, I am short on time this week, so we do need to keep moving. Genshin stuff is I kept going with the whole. I think I'm maybe about halfway through it, going by the map.
How can you tell? The map is vertical.
It's not as vertical as it really should be. It's kind of weird.
Are you in the hole by now?
I
Have
am
you
in the
met
hole.
Shish room?
I am deep. I haven't seen the Sheesh room yet because while I was just faffing about in the hole and exploring and enjoying myself, I hit level 40 and the world just said, guess what now?
Yeah.
The hole is not a great place for that to happen.
No, it is not. So
We-
everything kind of jumped up about 15 levels and started pummeling me.
Yeah, we're trying to
I
fix it.
unironically used yeah for the entirety of the hole.
So I've kind of hit that wall. I can't progress further through the hole for well, if I stick strictly to the story quests, I probably could.
There's a boss at the end. It's not a hard one, but
Yeah.
if you're
But-
under-leveled and facing level penalty, it might be hard.
Yeah, and that my characters were a little bit under level for running around at a level, was it world level 4? But because of just Natlan shenanigans, I was doing quite well. But yeah, you change that dynamic by 10 levels, and suddenly, yeah,
It's not just that; it's that world level jump in particular that makes people.
yeah. Whoop.
Whoop.
Hello.
Pickle?
I moved the mouse over to the wrong thing and clicked it.
Oh.
How many more Pyro Regis finds you need to have enough to get both those?
All right. Let me see. I need, what is it, 20 per character. I'm up to 25? Let me check.
What are we leaving? Bennett
Yes,
Shanglin.
25.
If we can get you these two, they will cover anything that's not immune to Pyro's bases pretty good as two off-fielders for you that'll help get you over this hump.
And
Yeah.
they will also allow you to, like, in future, if you need to, you can branch into Vape, and they are in the next major patch going to be buffing Overload as well.
Yeah. I really do enjoy Overload. It's just really fun, especially if you get chain reaction.
The
But-
Well, the thing with Overload is that the meta people hate it because it basically undoes grouping.
yeah,
So you can get it to pop. You can get it to pop once, and then you've got to chase the enemies all over the map. Which means if you're going for time, you're basically screwing yourself.
Yeah.
if even if you're not going for grouping, it's still obnoxious to have to run all over the place chasing stuff.
Yeah.
That,
there
and
is
it's sort of shackled to
Chevreuse.
Chevreuse, who nobody can get unless they're going to roll on a Raiden Shogun banner, because she's never not been on a Raiden Shogun banner.
Or the partner banner is.
So beyond all that, and all Genshin is basically been grinding. I've hit the domain a couple of times and started to get a few 5-star artifacts for Kniche. They're not the most optimal for him, but they're not too bad. It's Elemental Mastery and crit, so we'll go with that.
Yeah, EM's gonna work with Dendro, especially because you can't do a proper burning team without Emily. And even then, it probably is gonna be handy.
Yeah. Well, I think pretty sure if I've got my understanding of it right, Kniche double dips on Elemental Mastery.
If that's the case, then yeah, that'll. Also, it might be
Yeah.
worth trying to YOLO pull Nahida.
I haven't been able to get a single piece of freaking elementary mastery gear ever since I decided to pull Fernahida.
Oh yeah, that domain is evil. Like it's that one and the Navia one just hate me.
Like, I've been going in there virtually every day to dump resin and still haven't gotten a damn thing.
Yeah, I dumped weeks worth of resin in there, and it's.
Does anyone even use the offset that's from in there?
What is the offset? I actually don't think the offset's that bad.
I don't know. Well, the thing is that there are lots of sets in the game that are not bad, but are not optimal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that one's used by a few people. Gilded Dreams is used by a few people. I think you can do builds with some of the Power 5 use that set. I think there's a few other characters that yeah, it is a usable set. I've seen it on quite a few lists. It's at least second best, if not best, for.
Yeah.
So
beyond Hoyo, I haven't done a whole lot, but I did get the expansion for Factorio because the autism is strong.
Oh right, you sent me that picture of your Factorio in.
No, that would have been Serathis who sent that.
Oh, was it Serathis that sent that?
Yeah, because he's also deep into the autism hole. The thing with the new expansion though is it adds on directly to the end of the current base game, and I don't have a save at that point. So there is
the end of Factorio. I don't understand.
It's previously it was you'd launch a rocket, and that was kind of the final goal of building your massive factory of doom. But now, after you launch said rocket, you follow it into space, and you go to other planets and farm asteroids and all sorts of shenanigans up there. But yeah, because of the nature of the expansion, I haven't been able to touch any of it yet because I got to do another playthrough.
Fern and his another playthroughs.
Yeah, I've never actually finished a full playthrough of Factorio though, so.
Or Titan Quest.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
Grim Dawn.
I finished the base game of Titan Quest now. I'm onto the expansions. But yeah. I need to also go back and finish the expansions. We've got Titan Quest 2 coming up in a bit too.
Yeah.
My level of enthusiasm for sequels to ARPGs is like basically zero. Like I don't know what it being done well looks like other than Diablo 2. Diablo 2 sort of become the baseline now, and the further something gets away from Diablo 2, the worse it gets typically.
Yeah. Like Torchlight 2 I didn't mind too much.
They were
Torchlight
okay
3,
at best.
about it. Yeah.
Torchlight was okay.
But yeah, Torchlight 3 is when because I did what?
I very definitely did not get that feeling of the game getting its hooks in from Torchlight the way I did with Diablo 2.
No. It was a nice little snack is basically Torchlight.
I think that Grim Dawn has by far come closer for me than any of the others.
Which is releasing a expansion very soon as well, when they finally announce the actual date for it.
All gets your credit.
But Barbara.
Oh, but he takes more damage when he's down than all of us here.
Yeah.
Because it takes so long.
Yes.
Oh.
I'm lagging like a boss.
Did the game
all
just
of a
skip
sudden.
the animation for you?
Yes.
Yeah,
was no
it did for me
animation.
too. He just kind of went thud. So yeah, that's basically been my week. Is like, yeah, bought an expansion. I can't technically play yet because there is, from what I can tell, almost no change to the base game of Factorio. Like a lot of games, they launch an expansion and there'll be something in the earlier game. But not in this case. So yeah, that's been my week. It's been fire and factories and failure, I guess. So Vol, what you do?
Let's see. What did I do? Not a lot. I cleared. I got access to whatchamacallit, Blitz mode on ZZZ for Nest.
Their response to
And-
simulated universe feedback.
Yeah, it's like I don't see any reason that I would ever touch the rest of whatchamacallit of Hollow Zero ever again because Blitz is so much better. It's not even comparable. Like I was so sick to the back teeth of Hollow Zero, and it didn't take very long to get there because it's just a game mode that is about punishing the player over and over again. I still sent them a great deal of feedback about that in the most recent survey about how they need to abandon this ridiculous focus on subtractive gaming where you take things away from the player to make things harder as opposed to just coming up with new boss patterns and new boss abilities, which is what a sane person would do to make difficulty go higher, instead of like impeding the character's ability to press the dodge button by having it just not go off sometimes. In what planet is that a good way of increasing difficulty? Sure, it will make it harder, but it'll make it harder by making the player mad.
I like the.
That's just dumb.
I particularly like the difficulty modifiers you can stick on Blitz mode, and kind of wish there was more.
But
more
that's
baby
entirely
rolls.
your choice.
Yeah.
Like you can set the difficulty bar for yourself. It's not like you roll up on the boss and they're like, haha, we're going to make you go in with 1% health this time. Enjoy.
Well, that's what I mean.
Which
I
is
hope...
what it can just randomly do to you in Hollow Zero. Like, why do that?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I like that there's a difficulty option select for Blitz mode where you can just go to +11 if you want. How many more flowers?
I mean, you've got to jack the difficulty up just to
7
get
more.
to Blitz mode. Like I was willing to accept that. I knew that I was going in with I was 10 levels under where I needed to be to do Blitz mode and so on and all of that stuff. I just accepted that as the difficulty at the door. This is the price of admission. That is not the case for getting stuck in a corridor on the Bangbu TV where you can only go forward and every time you take a step your health goes down so that when you get to the destination you can't do anything because you'll get one shot by everything. In what way is that fun? Who thought that was a fun way to design a game mechanic?
Yep, Paul.
It was. Oh, I'll get distracted chasing a lizard. This type of approach is like in sharp contradistinction to what Simulated Universe does, where they just make the enemies more and more and more and more powerful as you increase the difficulty, because you set the difficulty for Simulated and Divergent Universe yourself as well. I haven't spent much time exploring it at all, but you have that option available to just crank it up. You can keep it low if you're just trying to do routine farming, or you can crank it up to make it really obnoxiously difficult. You just do whatever you want. But the player power scales according to the blessings, and the blessings go through the roof. So it's about, can you put together a build on this run like you would in a roguelike, let's say, which is going to allow you to overcome the challenge ahead of you. So they aren't operating in a subtractive way. They aren't taking fundamental mechanics and causing them to break for you so that you can't depend on the rules to be the same. Like I hate that approach. So I'm very glad to see the back of it in ZZZ, and it must be that other people are as well if they introduced the mode to begin with.
I wouldn't mind it if it was like a bonus mode that came out later, something like Storm Disaster or Golden Gears or whatever, much further down the the life cycle of the game. They have this little mode here, but the fact that they've introduced it as the base first version of the game
It was
mode, I think,
clearly
is,
intended to be the standard. Like,
yeah,
this is the baseline that they're going to be building on, but everybody seems to hate it. It's one thing if you've got, options to participate in a particular game mode that they introduce. Like Simulated Universe has like 5 different modes that you can play, all with slightly different rule sets, and none of them are obligatory. They all contribute to the same points accrual for your weekly reward. So you can pick whatever one you like best and just play that one.
thank goodness. Except for the part where the current one seems to keep its quest in your quest log forever.
I don't know what you need to do to clear that out.
I think you have to
I
get
don't know
all
what
20
I don't
of the
even-
discoveries.
I don't even know what you need to do to clear out golden gears. They're still rotting in my inventory. But that said, I haven't had a successful run through there because I keep getting true sting and getting whomped. But yeah, so you've got the option. Like if you are like Aristeel and you hate the most recent version of Simulated Universe, you can just do the minimum and then just not bother with it anymore. If you like to if you preferred to play with the blessing model as opposed to the scepter model, which is entirely understandable. In ZZZ, they just tried to funnel everybody into the same activity, and it's horrible. Like, you can have good, enjoyable runs through Hollow Zero that feel like Simulated Universe runs, but it's almost always in spite of the mechanics, not because of the mechanics. The mechanics are usually annoying. I understand what they're trying to do with some of the mechanics, like I get what they're doing with you can donate HP to get bonuses, or you can spend lots of gear coins to get bonuses. Like, I understand the logic, the game design logic there, but it doesn't intersect with the rest of the game, and it should never allow you to. You should never be allowed to actually break mechanics without the players opting into it. Like, the one that always gets my goat is the adding a big cooldown to dodge. Like, that's a fundamental thing that you spend all the rest of your time in the game building into your muscle memory. And then having it involuntarily robbed from you can cause an awful lot of problems. But basically it introduces frustration into the game, not challenge. There's a big difference. Like, when it comes to challenge, you've got something presented with you and you game your way through it. In a situation where you have something that's in your muscle memory taken away from you as an option, you are going to be put in a position where you're fighting yourself a lot of the time, and you're doing things by accident that you don't intend to do a lot of the time. And that's going to introduce a lot of friction in the experience. So it doesn't make sense from a game design perspective to take that approach. But hopefully they are getting the picture now, because it seems like it's a relatively common complaint.
Well, they've
What is
introduced.
causing us to generate so many of these freaking Night Soul bursts anyway? My screen's going crazy.
Oh, I think it's part of because the way Kanisha's thing works, he attaches and then he has to build up to full charge and fire the big blast and then build it up again and get 3 off per skill cast.
Right, because
Yeah.
my screen is just going crazy with that special frame thing that it does to indicate them. But yeah, so it's I like the blitz mode better. I'm not, now that it's in the game, I'm going to resent my weekly run through Hollow Zero a lot less, even though I'm still sort of underpowered for it. It's at least something that feels more under my control. Whereas every time I went into Hollow Zero before, it was like, I'm going to do my best, but it could just screw me at the last minute, and then that's the last 20, 30 minutes of gameplay down the drain. Can't do anything. And I'm glad that that's now off the table.
How close are you, Fern? With Pyro?
One more.
One more. Okay, after this,
more.
we'll go punch a fat yum.
Yep, and I need 20 fruits from him.
Yep, that'll get you started for boss drops.
Unless you want to go do more Oceanid.
I mean, we can. It's easier with a party.
It is. Oceanid is annoying without a party.
Yeah, I need Oceanid as well, but I don't want to get open flowers on a low world level.
Oh crap!
So I think the Regisvine is starting to wig out a little bit.
Oh yeah, he's been skipping animations on my screen.
Yeah.
Not sure if that's lag or him just getting mad because we killed him so many times.
But yeah, ZZZ currently I'm stuck in the 50 to 60 doldrums.
Yeah, it's
where there's no resources for anything and you don't feel like you're making any progress day to day.
Yeah, the only thing I can recommend is just keep hitting that HIA club until you got one functional team, and as soon as they're up to like skill level 7 or 8, go and get those popped in batteries on a day you got time, and get the boss drops and the both the weekly boss drops and the normal boss drops for their trace or not traces core skills.
Core skills.
Yeah, and get them to 6, and then roll with that team and build the other team up slowly with your dailies, but focus on just doing content with that main team. That was definitely the best way to do it from what I was going through with it.
Yeah, even with that though, like that's a lot of time and resources investment.
Yeah, that's 3 characters. It's going to eat an entire afternoon of free time to.
Yep. Okay.
Right,
That one's done. Off to the fat squirrel.
I'm a bit sort of unsure about the value of, say, the last rank in numbered skills, like the ones where you're just building up to what, 10, 12, I don't even know.
12, but the hamster cages are so rare right now because the game's still very early in its life cycle. There aren't a backlog of events to get them from, and there haven't been that many battle passes. So even if you've been buying the battle passes, you may not you're probably not going to have very many. Like I had enough for Jane, and I can't quite finish Burnice. I need one more hamster cage. So they're just not there. Wrong teleport point. Yeah, there we go.
It's a cleave. We're all doomed.
Yeah, so ZZZ's not going anywhere anytime soon.
You're about a week or two off, I'd say, from being able to get a. Oh, you got levels too. Never mind. You're about off.
Yeah, it seems to be just this is the rough part where you've basically just got to wait for time to pass so that you can advance, and there's not really any other option. But yeah, the Genshin is also on a sort of a not a hiatus, but sort of it's in maintenance mode for me at the moment. The only reason that it's not entirely in maintenance mode is that it's Nahita's birthday, and I haven't touched the game mode that event because they announced the quest requirements for story continuity, and they are extensive, like really extensive. There's a major quest chain in Sumeru from one of the patches, and there's also the that you require to have done certain particular RNRs, namely the cooking ones. I think there's at least one particular cooking one that you have to do.
Yeah, there's 3 cooking brother RNRs.
They make the Melusine look like sublime geniuses by comparison.
Yeah, maybe that's why I liked the Melusines and their particular brand of specialness. Went as soon as I got to Fontaine because I just got done dealing with the Nara. That and Melusine actually have names you can sometimes remember.
And they're not mushrooms.
Radishes, mushrooms, tree people. I'm not actually sure what acorns.
I thought they were cabbages.
Cabbages.
They could be cabbages.
They're horrible little retards, is what they are. I equate them to the Namazu.
I like the Namazu better because you get multiple opportunities to behave in a hostile way to Namazu, and you do not get any such opportunity with the Nara.
The Warrior Life's Namazu kicking game is quite excellent.
Yeah, Namazu are for punting, but
Yes.
Nara are only for serving as an like indentured servant. Apparently.
Mushroom things.
But yeah, so that's a thing. I haven't had a chance to do that event yet, so I don't know anything about it whatsoever. I haven't finished the. Is the multiplayer event still running?
Yeah, we can hit that up after.
We do need to go and bop that.
We can bop that a couple.
I still got to polish that off. And I really wish that they would do more of those because multiplayer events are by far my favorite types of events. Like it's usually, though, to be fair, a lot of those events, the reason those events are my favorite is because I hate most of their combat events. Like, they're all obnoxious things involving the lightning mechanic that we have so often complained about. It's I suppose you could say that they're trivial, but realistically, I think that all of the Ho-Yo games could benefit a lot from more co-op stuff, generally speaking. Like, Genshin is quite robust in terms of what you can get away with co-op wise, and they really underutilize it. It's like once in a blue moon they'll have one of those boss challenges where they will have a co-op boss that you can do with your friends, which is really challenging, and they add a bunch of modifiers to it, and they very rarely do that. They do it though, which means that they can. But instead, they'll just, for every one of those, they put in like 8 of those ones where you have the lightning bolt mechanic that prevents you from using the team you want to use. So I don't know why they do that.
So the event structure of Nahida's birthday is you have the main story like usual, and you have the mini games because this is a bigger event, so it's not running for. I think it's only running for 2 weeks.
Like the Lantern Festival.
Yeah. So the 3 mini games that come with it are one of them is a very very simple spot the difference game. One of them is I think it's supposed to be a pseudo rhythm game, but not quite. With the little buggy, and it's an auto scroller, so it's just a mini game. It's not very hard. But the other one is a combat challenge, but they give you trial characters, and I was able to get gold ranks on the first 3 days with the trial characters. So and there is no lightning bolt. So
the lightning bolt's what really offends me. Like, I don't mind if the challenge is just difficult or I can't work out how to do it or whatever. Provided that it's allowing me to use the team I want to play, I can forgive most of the other things.
Yeah.
It's the fact that the lightning bolt tries to head you into doing things that don't work or require you to have a massive roster that really annoys me because it seems really cynical.
Yeah, they give you 3 of the 4 pieces for the team that is most favored by that particular challenge at level 80. So you bring your 4th, basically. But everything else is provided to you. And you can use the level 80s on the times 10 multiplier difficulty level 90, and they seem like one of them favors Kanish, and you get to use the Kanish Emily team. So I borrowed the Kanish Emily and the borrowed Toma, and brought Guoba along for that one.
Oh,
lol,
Toma.
lol.
And the one of them's a Mualani vape team, and the other one of them was a Navia team, Navia Zalonin team.
Most of these teams still sound like things I can't do.
Well,
I either don't have the off field or I don't have the driver.
Well, you'll get them. That's what I mean. They give them to you as trial characters, even though they're level 80. They're kitted out enough to do the trial fine. Oh, you Yumka sword.
But yeah, so at any rate, that's not on the back burner as such. But I'm currently hoarding Prima Gems because I'm going to have to chain pull several characters, and some of them I actually want, in which case the desire sensor is going to abuse me greatly. Ain't nothing
Yes.
to be done about that.
That's how it
Because
do.
I've got, at present, I've got 51,000 Primogems. So I'm pretty healthy on Primogems in an abstract way, but you know, I don't know what Nahida's going to do to me. Well, I don't know whether or not I will pull all the way to Nahida. Like, if I lose the 50-50, then I'll have to think about whether I'm going to go all the way. Because there's no question that she's valuable, but the question is like, well, what am I sacrificing down the line in order to pull Nahida? I'm not like Aristeel, who now opens his wallet at the drop of a hat. So I have to think about it carefully.
only for Jane and Burnice so far.
Only for 2 of the 4 characters that you've pulled.
Only ones that.
Only 50% of the time he'll spend lots of money.
Only 2 of the last 3 banners in ZZZ.
It is important to shame you a little bit, so that you don't fall into any bad habits.
Yeah. Don't worry, none of the characters coming up in ZZZ interest me very much at all, so the wallet's going to firmly close stock resource.
But yeah, so I've got resources, but you know, Nahida's on the table. I want to pull Nahida explicitly for Clorinda Quick Bloom. So the motivation to pull her signature weapon is quite low, because on teams that use Farina, which are all of my Hyper Bloom teams, you really, really want to use Nahida as an off healer to generate extra stacks for Farina's buff, and that buff is sufficiently large that it can offset the damage benefits that you would be getting from Nahida's signature weapon if you simply use Prototype Amber instead. Like, Prototype Amber is one of those crafted weapons that really does work when you put it in the right context. So yeah, I'll probably not pull for her signature. It doesn't seem like it will pay off enough, considering how many other things are down the line that I want to pull for. The most obvious being Mavwika, because, well, Archons are always OP.
Yes.
It's basically impossible for her not to be OP. If she turns out not to be OP, I'll be extremely surprised.
Well, last time they released a not OP Archon, the Chinese fanbase rioted so hard they actually buffed.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, so I think Mavwik is safe. Nahida is an Archon already, so and will make Clorinda basically an Eternal. The Clorinda team functionally Eternal, probably usable all the way up till the next 2 years. If you've got it,
Which is really what you want out of a pull, is that you want to get a lot of time out of it.
Yeah, and Nahida's just, as soon as you get her, you'll be like, how did I live without this character? It makes
the thing that sort of I find a little bit bewildering is how nearly every guide for Nahida talks about on-field Nahida, and I'm like, well, on-field Nahida, I thought that this is a support character. Why is everybody using her for on-field DPS?
Her skill has such a short cooldown. The fact that her personal damage is butts doesn't matter. because she scales with EM, you can just take pictures of things that are on Electra.
You say that, but I'm not convinced EM gear exists.
Well, that's true. You have to get the fabled EM gear from the Dendro domain, and that domain has not been nice to me.
But yeah, so but the one that is really up, the ones that are really up in the air are Sitlali, who if I pull her, it'll be entirely for story reasons, because I like her in the story. And Chaska's also up in the air, and Chaska's not. I'm not so attached to Chaska's character, as I'm really sort of curious as to how she executes in a meta context. Like, what are the uses that people find for her? Like, what effect does she have, let's say, on the, call it the Kazuha meta, the logic that everybody needs to have Kazuha, because she sort of does similar things in a way, except that she doesn't actually need to get the reactions on field first before swirling, which I think is kind of an interesting approach. But I mean, it could just be that Hoyo have been trying furiously to power creep Kazuha since, eternity. Did he come out in Liyue or Inazuma?
the either the pre-patch for Inazuma or the first patch of Inazuma.
Yeah, that means
We're done with Youngster.
he's been in circulation as a dominant character ever since then, and they haven't been able to creep him out,
So
which is, from a commercial point of view, a bad move.
did Fern
Like,
say he's got
to
all
make a
the
character that powerful.
fat
Yep,
Yonkers
I'm
off?
done with
He's
the
all
Yonkers
fat
now.
He's all fattened up.
Let's go play with.
We'll do this,
oh,
Chief.
shit.
Don't forget to bring something that can shoot.
I got the shuttlecock.
I have a whole gun.
Yeah, so I'm interested what Chaska will look like in execution. I'm not so interested necessarily in pulling her. If she is going to raise the power level of the entire meta again, then might need to pull for her, but I'm not really looking in that direction right now. I'm much more interested in Sitlali, who will be like the first 5-star cryo in a very long time, apart from Wriothesley, right? And Wriothesley's never been rerun.
And hey,
Cryo always seems to be a bit behind the curve, really.
Because his reactions just aren't very good ever since they
Well,
started making
Geo
stuff
used to be in the
freeze.
same position, and then they introduced Navia and Shilonen, and now Geo is one of the king archetypes now. Although I have reservations about the ability for Navia's logic to extend Geo as a whole. Navia just seems to be sort of an island design-wise.
Yeah, they just had to totally rework the way she interacts with the mechanic. I mean, at least it still uses the Geo mechanic. I suppose that's got it going for it. The problem is nobody else has any kind of comparable.
Wait, who did you? Oh, that explains a lot.
Sonic Boomin. This is why I've been really pushing him to pull for Nahida, because with Clorinda or any on-field Electro, the Shuttlecock just... It's so good.
Yeah, I did not look at anything before pulling Clorinda to speak of in terms of her meta ability. I just wanted a modern character, but I appear to have at least gotten a pretty decent one.
Yeah, she is often placed right up there with Navia. Navia's probably a bit higher now because of Zelonin. She fits a bit better on the Zelonin teams. Oh, your bomb's actually hurt now.
I think that they're probably going to start to gradually tail off Hyperbloom as a whole, because it's been dominant for a very long time now, which I think is what the burning version thing was about, and I think it's also going to be what adjusting all of the multipliers on cryo-based reactions is about.
Yeah.
So yeah. Moving on to I'll move on to Blue Archive next for a change of pace. Blue Archive, the sort of culture festival for Trinity has arrived, and so there's a series of events about that. The first one is the prelude to the culture festival. The After School Sweets Club have discovered that there is a particularly rare type of sweet or cake or bread or something that they've never tried, that is very rare, and it's being held up as a prize at the for those bands that successfully audition to be like curtain raisers for the festival and that type of thing. And of course they want in. But of course they also aren't a band. They are a club of kids who go and eat sweets after school. So basically traditional anime shenanigans of a bunch of people starting a band ensue at this point. It's a very conventionally anime story. There's no particular surprises there, but it was still quite enjoyable. The mini game that accompanies the event is a sort of like basically a stats raising game where various combinations of stats will generate extra scenes, extra story scenes, and that type of thing. Nothing particularly remarkable, all told, but it is still like it's a new type of mini game that they have brought in, which is it just serves to freshly remind me every time I'm tempted to go back why I stopped playing FGO and that there are no fresh events in FGO.
Oh, Fern brought the yo-yo.
every couple of events, Blue Archive will introduce a new type of minigame, and a lot of them are quite creative. They've had all sorts of different minigames, and many of them are enjoyable, many of them are frustrating. Some of them are relatively easy, some of them are abusively hard. There's a lot of variation in there, so it's still continuing to deliver fresh experiences. I'm not really planning to roll on any of the characters for the banner, because they are all Fury of Set based, and Fury of
Yeah.
Set is autism the game mode essentially. So I haven't really delved into it yet.
Yo.
Oh, hang on. Cat has discovered a new shortcut.
Not a good
There we
time.
go. No, it is not. Okay, there we go. We good. I don't know where my UI is gone, but I don't really need it. Actually, I probably do, but you know, whatever.
Stop eating food.
That button. That button. There we go. Okay. Just had to undo everything the cat did with one walk on the keyboard. No, you don't. Come back here. Okay, there we go. Yeah, cats and keyboards do not mix. Or perhaps they mix too well.
Okay.
Every streamer will tell you shouldn't have the cat in the room when streaming.
Well, I thought he was out of the room, but he was hiding.
The cat is wherever you don't want him to be.
That is how you cat.
But yeah. So moving on from Blue Archive back to Star Rail. So Star Rail's got a new major patch. What are we looking at now? 6, 7, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7,
6.
7,
This
6.
is 6.
This is 6. Right. So we are returning to Penacony for effectively Penacony's Culture Festival, which devolves very rapidly into a bizarre series of events. So I'm not going to say anything in particular about it because Ara still hasn't had the opportunity to do the story yet. I haven't done the event that follows the story, but I have done the primary story. And I think that there will be a lot of people who like it and a lot of people who don't like it. It's not that the content is particularly divisive, it's just that it's kind of bizarre, and depending on people's tolerance for the arbitrarily bizarre as opposed to intricate storytelling, it's going to get variable mileage. Also, if you find arbitrary rapping for no reason obnoxious as opposed to hilarious because the NPCs find it obnoxious, you will also not get much mileage out of it. But yeah, it's basically an introduction of a new Galaxy Ranger character, Rapper, who is like all the Galaxy Rangers have a chip on their shoulder, one way or another, and this is about Rapper's one.
Just give me 1 sec to remove the cat before we start this.
Cat. Yeah. So the story is basically, how shall I say, all of Penacony is a dreamscape, and things that occur in Penacony are often referred to as memes. But what we know of as a meme in the real world tends to take on a life of its own. And it turns out that in the universe of Star Rail, as a phenomenon, this is actually really well developed. I mean, if you consider it, memo keepers are themselves memes. They refer to themselves as mimetic life forms. This means that other types of memes that are particularly powerful can be quite dangerous to them in various ways because they can act like an actual disease as far as they're concerned. So yeah, there's a lot of very odd stuff happens. If you don't find Boot Hill's speech patterns amusing, you will probably hate this patch because you will spend a lot of time with Boot Hill. Or Boot Hill. He desperately wants to swear, but he's not capable of doing so. No, like he's physically incapable of doing so.
Okay, that's just fun.
Basically, everybody's got this thing, and it's Are you familiar with the Babelfish?
Yes.
Everybody in Starro has a Babelfish. It's called the synesthesia beacon, which allows people to communicate. But it's technology. It's a piece of technology everybody has. Boot Hills has been tampered with irrevocably, and he's never been able to fix it. And it causes his curse words to be replaced by bizarre G-rated alternatives,
That sounds
which
incredible.
often don't make any sense whatsoever.
Son of a
The
nice
English
lady.
ones are quite amusing. They're very different to the Japanese ones. The Japanese ones, you can hear them in the Japanese voice track. They're different from the English ones, but they're also very bizarre English. Yeah, there's a lot of Boot Hill cursing in this. It's implied that there are actually a lot of Galaxy Rangers like this who are incredibly potty mouthed. So yeah, but he I guess doesn't really fit in anymore since he can't be potty mouthed even if he tries. But yeah, there's a lot of Boot Hill. I think you probably spend more time with Boot Hill than any other new characters. You get introduced to the new character of Mr. Rekka, who is another character who I think people will like or loathe. He is, how do I say this? He's a director. And he is a director in the tradition of the unbelievably over-enthusiastic, very slightly camp director.
Oh dear. I need 4 more.
But I think that he's going to have a lot of fans by the time most people are through this story. He's quite the character. He doesn't take a very active role. He's always around the edges of the story, but he leaves an impression. But yeah, so I had a good time with the story. There were some sequences that I just laughed my ass off at. I don't know that they were genuinely funny, but I know that I found them funny at the time. A lot of the humor though does come from Trailblazer being Trailblazer, taking the opportunity to do what she does best.
No.
Which is to totally fail to take anything going on seriously, and to straight-facedly indulge all of Rapper's behavior. So yeah, I had a good time with it. I'll leave it to Aristeal to comment on the new simulated universe because I've only really done a tiny bit of it. I can see some problems with it, but the problems, as I see them, are not quite to the extent that Aristeal found them revolting. It seems all right. I haven't tried to play any difficult content with it, and it seems to have a roughly same sort of curve of obstacles as the Trash Raccoon event, whatchamacallit, Galactic Baseball event did, in the sense that all of the enemies very rapidly become massive HP sponges because your personal power is not worth very much in this particular version. It's more about building teams that can trigger particular effects rather than teams that are personally powerful. The approach is different. Like if you use charge-based things, you're going to want to build teams around just invoking ultimates often. The actual effect of the ultimate does not matter so much, provided that you can invoke them often, which is something that I've got some experience building teams for because of the Galactic Baseballer event. So, yeah, but it is a new simulated universe, and it looks like it's going to be sort of an on-ramp for more focus on Herta story-wise, since it seems like she feels very close to particularly what's taking place in this particular scenario, and everybody's been champing at the bit to see true Herta as it is. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing if they go down that road. I installed but have not booted up for a good reason. Honkai 3rd, and that's because I don't want to get sucked in by Honkai 3rd. But when they added it to the Hoyo launch, I couldn't resist. So I installed it. Whether or not I play it is still up in the air, but basically that depends on whether I can find a guide that is both good and straightforward on how to get started, long after it's relevant. It sounds like, from what the chatter in the community has been about Honkai Third, that when the story entered its part 2 phase, they did, I don't know what to call it, a hard power creep, I guess, where they power creeped every extant character so hard that it was basically a reset. Like, you could still use them if you had meta comps, like the best meta comps, but people who were joining the game for part 2 would basically be entering at the same level that the experienced players were at, more or less. Like, it would take some time to build up a cohesive team, but apparently, the thing to understand about Honkai Third is it's actually a competitive game. It's not as friendly as Genshin and Star Rail and ZZZ are. Basically, your income of premium currency is very closely tied to what I will liken most closely to Pinecone or Blue Archive PvP. So your performance in Honkai Third Spiral Abyss determines your ranking, and your ranking will determine your income. So you have a very, 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 very strong incentive to be good and to be meta. If you are good and meta, you stay good and meta. It's very rich get richer. Because the income you will get from being the best of the best will be nearly enough to pull everybody that comes out.
Wow.
It won't quite be enough. You might have to skip one in 3 patches or something like that. If you like buy a couple battle passes or something, you'll probably be able to stay on top of pulling every patch. So yeah, it's there's a very, very hefty incentive to be meta, be the best, be at the forefront of strategy and clear time. So yeah, but in order to be that, it does require you to have a very good knowledge of the mechanics. And by mechanics, I don't just mean the combat mechanics. I mean the massive bloat of systems that you get in a gacha game that has been out for an appreciable fraction of eternity. So yeah, it's tough to get into, which is why I have not fired it up. I want to basically have a game plan to survive contact with this particular challenge if I want to attempt to do it. And the only reason I would do it is to see the story. The story to Honkai Third is quite good, and it's strongly character focused, unlike the other Hoyo games. The primary characters that you play as on the regular are actual characters. They are not protagonist insert. There is no Stel, there is no Lumine, there is no Bell. They are actual characters who are on the same level as those who do combat and have their own opinions, their own histories, their own sort of direction and goals. It's a more conventional JRPG story in that sense. Yeah, so I'm still interested in it, and them adding Sparkle adds a little bit more incentive for me to get involved, but we'll just see. I don't know if I've got the time for it as all.
For 4 gacha games?
Yeah. It wouldn't be the first time. It wouldn't be the first time, but it was unwise the first time.
It was very unwise the first time. Okay, we do it.
That's part of why I want a good guide, is so that I know what I can prune to keep it as fundamentally a story experience that won't hold me back too much from parties.
Fern, queue us for the multiplayer event.
Alrighty. I'll come over there first.
But yeah, I'll leave my week there.
All right. Well, since I do his duck out, we should probably just charge on through.
All right. How much more time you got?
About an hour.
Okay. So okay, I'll zippity doo dah for everything. So this week, we'll do the non-Hoyo stuff and then start off with let's see. Tax week was this week. Tax week has been this past month. I finally got done. It is ready to send to the CPA on Monday.
And then they will send it back.
Yes, and it will need corrections, but all that matters is I dunk it in their inbox before the 31st of October. That's A lot of Canadian.
That is.
A lot of dendro, bro.
But you'll have plenty of dendro app.
Screw it. Let's do that.
No,
No.
it's all falling apart.
Oh no.
All falling.
Daya, of all things.
Isn't Day like the worst?
Pretty much.
Depends on if you have it C2 or not.
C1.
I mean, yeah.
Anyway, so taxes are ready to submit on Monday. I held off. I want to submit them relatively close to the end of the month. Mostly because if the CPA calls me, there's a chance I'll ignore my phone because I'm getting so many spam calls that there's a non-zero chance I just ignore any phone call that comes to me. All right, that's a circle.
They exist. It's that kind of time of year where all the not only the politicians out for the elections, but also the various charities are all walking around with their hands out.
Yeah, I screamed at one of them that called with an actual person today. So yeah,
Well, at least it was an actual human, so that's a step up.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I don't like any of those.
oh, I picked. Anyway, so first thing to get this done was possible this week, a little bit early, because basically I had set aside a day to do a startup for some customers, and Georgia Power screwed us.
Nothing new about that.
Yeah, so basically, due to the hurricane, they got quite behind on my way. Yeah, anytime there's a bomb objective, it's
Yeah.
Well, enemies don't do what you want them to. End of story.
well, that and if people are hitting the enemies at all, the bomb's just gonna get knocked away. There's too much splash. But yeah, so that got delayed, freed up a day, which I crammed taxes into. Still not back on normal schedule because it has to be submitted to the CPA and a whole bunch of looming stuff in the future for projects and jobs that have been nuts. But it is not as stressful anymore now that taxes are final. However, I do still have a bunch of other junk that's going. So let's see. Outside of Hoyo stuff, I had been meaning to get into the East games for a while, and I started this week before last, but I haven't talked about it yet because I hadn't I hadn't made it far enough that I thought I could give a good talking about it. But I like the Trails games. I like Falcom's way of doing things in general. And people forever have told me how good the East series. Problem is getting into East is painful.
It's a big wall.
Well, they're all self-contained, so picking an entry point, narratively speaking, is not difficult.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is some of the games are just terrible.
Yeah.
Like they East goes all the way back to NES, like TurboGrafx 16 NES era. So
which I believe I actually own a couple of.
So yeah,
they all got re-released on Steam multiple times.
Yeah, so that's the thing. All the games have started making their way on Steam, and some of the remakes for some of the really bad games have made their way on Steam, but they haven't remade all of them. Some of them are just as is. So East 8 is one that people talk about a lot. It's 10 just came out, so when I started hearing that, oh, you should get started with East 8, 9 was the newest one. And this is right around the time Trails of Cold Steel came out, and they were just kind of starting to get their 3D engine put together and make their token attempts at 3D combat. But as far as an exploration combat action combat style video game goes, it's fairly good. The combat has jank. It does have a lot of jank. Notably when trying to dodge. I have no idea if that dodge has invincibility frames or not. I have no idea what the timing is for any attack, and some enemies will just delay their attacks forever and totally screw your dodge timing up. And other ones will be just fine. Flash Guard is your equivalent of Royal Guard and is much more reliable than dodging because it definitely has iframes on it. But it's also way tighter. It doesn't last as long. Characters have plenty of special moves. You can assign 4 of them at a time and level them up by using them more. That allow for quite a bit of build diversity, which is always fun. They go for enemy quantity over... of course.
Everybody always just goes straight for an emo. It just seems like, I don't know if there's like some meta strategy I'm not aware of, but it seems to me like
there we go.
People,
2 Dendros
people
lock
go
any
for-
changes.
Yes.
people who go for an emo first of all, like they just immediately strike me as, oh well, they're just trying to selfishly take care of only themselves and ignore everybody else because they figure, oh well, when swirl happens on its own, it'll look like I'm playing as a member of a team.
Yeah, it's also
It's like, no, you just don't want any responsibility. You don't want to participate.
they're just here for their rewards. There we go. Okay. Anyway, so yeah. So all that's fine and well. The story is fairly standard for a fantasy game, but it's told well enough, and the characters are fun. And
And talk about their penises.
yeah, Sahad,
But
the
for some
fisher,
reason.
the fisherman dude, is very uncouth. When he scratches his head, dandruff comes off.
Ew.
He's a sailor boy. The
Uncouth indeed.
Yeah, and there you get shipwrecked on an island, and you have to go find the castaways around the place that have been shipwrecked all over the island and bring them back to your camp, so you can work on building a ship to get off the island and kill the monster that wrecked your ship that's keeping you there. And along the way, find an ancient civilization that lived on the island, and a greater mystery around them. And also, there are dinosaurs. This island is old.
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs. Call them saurians. So yeah, premise is okay. Exploration's where the game really shines, and just going around. It's got a very Metroid style of exploration where you will get various pieces of equipment you can equip, and you will eventually get more slots so you can equip combinations of equipment that act as your Metroid style keys. And this is like your double jumps and your ability to move freely underwater, ability to float on swampy surfaces, stuff like that. It's a lot of fun finding all this, keeping track of everything on the map and filling out the map and getting all the upgrades so you can go back and get. That's all fun. The only issue I've had with the game is it is yet another game with a leave the game on and walk away from it set of chivos.
Oh no.
For all 6 of the playable characters, you have to have them on field, tabbed into the game for 6 hours.
But why though?
What this means is my play count is radically inflated because I turned this thing on when I went to work and just left it on. So actual playtime in this game, the main story and exploration's probably about 35 hours tops. Functionally, it's probably closer to probably about 25, 30. And but you look at my playtime on Steam, it's going to say something like 50 plus hours. Most of that time is not playtime, so don't go by that for how big this game is. It is yet again another game forcing me to skew my Steam playtime metrics that I would love to be able to use to gauge for approximately how long a game is for when I recommend it to friends. But no, that's not allowed.
Could be worse. Could be the Switch. One of my save files on Digimon World is like 6,000 hours now.
Oh, that's what you get when you have sleep mode that does janky things on the Switch.
Yeah.
So that's a pain in the butt. But those are just Chivos. They're not for any. If you're not a completionist, you're not going to care. Although this game really is geared towards that kind of completionist mindset, and for that, it's pretty good. The combat, it does have that early Falcom jank when they were just figuring out 3D. This was a Vita game originally. It's going to have some clunk to it when it comes to aiming the skills, but if you can get over the clunkiness and eventually figure out how the dodge and flash guard work enough to block and dodge the occasional attack, I think anybody can have a good time with the combat in this game. But man, is it definitely we're still figuring this stuff out, Falcom. It's yeah. But yeah, overall positive experience. Definitely recommend so far. But all right, that should.
Yep. That's all the points I need.
Put them all together. So yeah, good vidya. Definitely gets a recommend from me. Just know you're getting a bit of jank. But if you're okay, if you're an old fart like we are, that kind of early transition to 3D or first 3D handheld game style of action game jank, it's not anything we aren't used to and can't adapt to pretty quick. But
Spectacular difference between character splash art and actual character model.
Yeah. This you may remember this game. We actually, I think, mentioned it on the show when it came out because its localization was so legendarily terrible that the Falcom actually had to step in, fire the localizer, hire an entirely new localization studio, and redo all of the localization and the voice acting.
It was just unsalvageable.
Yeah, like they.
You know you screwed up when.
There's an area with a name in English with English text called Archaeozoic Chasm. The Archaeozoic Chasm. The first localization team named this the Archaeozoic Big Hole.
Technically correct.
Yes, but
why?
It had
but also no.
It had a name in English with English text already on the screen. You didn't have to do anything.
Yeah, it seems like it's nakedly a case of localization team thinking they are the Ian writing team.
Yeah, so this also led to awkward scenarios where people are talking about the chasm and Dana talking about her big hole.
Yeah.
Does not what you want. So
that's why the Genshin chasm is called the hole.
Yeah. Voice acting, there's no standouts. It's fairly mid all around, but it's not offensive. There's nothing bad in there for English. Localization currently as it stands seems to be pretty good. Given that the previous team was fired for bad localization, I guess they were incentivized to stay on script. So yeah. That's I'm about done with the game. The map says 89% complete. I may do the Falcom Blitz playthrough of Nightmare difficulty just to get the completion Chivo. We will see. One thing I really like about Falcom games, especially their 3D from their PC releases that they've done, most all of them, all the ones I've played, are very good about respecting your playtime. When it comes to travel, they usually give you quite a few teleport points and the ability to move fast. And they
Really, really fast.
yeah, and they also in the Cold Steel games they just straight up give you turbo mode. Yeah, they got a gazillion years worth of cutscenes in all of them because they're all very story
Well,
heavy
it's
and all that. But
not just Cold Steel either. Like it's in
yeah, it's in
Sky.
it's in the Sky games. It's retrofitted onto the PC ports of the Crossbell games. It's all there. So the games are very cognizant that you saving you multiple hours of playtime by being able to go fast is a nice thing to have. So it lets them keep the big open and expansive worlds and keep the sense of scale. You just can get around really fast. Yeast does not have a turbo option. You just go really, really fast.
Yeah, it's kind of uncanny actually, because like everybody just moves really, really unnaturally quickly. The only thing more uncanny is that how high they can jump.
Oh yeah, everybody got mad ups. You get the last character, the zebra haired girl with blue hair that joins your party. She is the fastest character and has the maddest of ups. And you go faster if you're dashing and then you jump. And this leads to a whole lot of doing like FPS bunny hopping in a third person action game to zoom around the map. It's fun. So I'm having a lot of fun with it so far. It definitely gets a solid recommend for the completionist types and for the people that like just exploring a map and like a little bit of action combat on the side and are okay with old school jank. So yep. So that's what you get from me when recommending for recommending that. Now, and that's really the only non. Oh, there's one more non-Hoyo that I've stuck my nose in very briefly for like an hour today and an hour yesterday. Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising got its final patch for the current season. There will be a season 2, and this will probably be the last season for the game before it goes into maintenance mode. With the release of Vikala and the reworking of the ranking system. Vikala, I can take or leave, especially because she's voiced in English by Iron Mouse. Not a fan of this influencer getting voice acting gigs at all. This is the total wrong direction we want the industry to move in the West.
Unless we develop a actual voice actor acting as a profession industry in the West, this is the way it was always going to go. There's just not any other approach really.
Yeah, and
it's a terrible idea, but there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, the further we go,
especially when you got such influencers who will draw an audience all on their own just because they're them.
And the further we go down this path, the less and less likely we are to have a Western voice acting industry. Honestly, we need Western animated media to reach a touchstone with the older generation for that to even be a possibility. And the influencers are already here, and the boomers aren't dead yet. So that's I know it's a long shot, but the further we go down this path, the more influencers get voice acting gigs, the less likely a proper voice acting Western path is to open for us.
Well, the thing is that the original publishers could intervene because ultimately the direction that this goes is that the casting becomes more about the actor than it becomes about the character. And there are going to be studios who are simply unwilling to accept that when it gets to its really sort of pathological end.
Yeah.
Because they will start doing what the localizers are doing with the scripts. They'll start trying to put like not to say Iron Mouse does this because I don't have any reason to believe that she does, but let's say that you get somebody who decides to put the Iron Mouse spin on the character to make it about the actor, not about the character. Like that's going to really get on the nerves of the creators, and so you could very well see a change in direction simply as a result of the fact that the whole thing has gone septic, basically.
Yeah, there are a lot of, especially in the crowd, that could try and insert it, and it's just bad juju. So yeah, that's one thing. That Vikala is the lesser point of interest for me because her her kit's interesting. It's fun to mess around with, but I already have 2 characters in that game that I like a lot, and adopted a new one at the level of play I'm at now is a little late in the piece, and unless somebody with just a design that I love comes out, it's going to be tough. And I already have Anila and Charlotta. So the more important change is the rank change. The way the rank system worked before, rankings were done by character, and you would go up through the letter grades from D to S, S++. So it went to E, D, C, B, A, S, S+, S++ master. And whenever you ranked up, this isn't quite true, but for illustrating the picture, I'll explain it this way. The lowest level lowest rank any of the characters on your account could be was 2 levels below your highest ranked character. So if you had a character that was S rank, every other character on your account would be at least B rank. If they weren't B rank before, they would be auto promoted the second a character hit S rank. Now, Master and S++ shared a bracket. So Masters did not have their stuff rank up to S+ division. They had all their alts stuck at S. Furthermore, as long as you were below S rank, if you went on a win streak of for at least 2 full games, you would accrue double points towards progressing up the ladder. So as long as you were going positive, and a couple of those were consecutive, you would make positive progress through the ranks and could fairly easily make it to S rank as soon as you were past what is a block button. Well, okay, you needed a bit more than that. You need to actually have a few combos and know your character pretty well. But getting into S rank was not too bad. Getting through S rank was a nightmare. In fact, it was such a nightmare that functionally the entirety of the player base that was still playing was stuck in S rank, because Grandmasters had all their other characters stuck in S rank, so they were playing against other Grandmasters, and because there's no win streak anymore, you have to have a positive win-loss. Period. End. And it has to be really positive to make it through S because of the lack of win streak. And you had Grandmasters, and S++ players that had no business playing in S rank stuck there because they were just fighting each other. And those of us that did belong in S rank at the time were also stuck in there because we could not break through with any of our characters, and any S++ players that had like default A ranks were also stuck in there with our alt characters because they would blitz through A rank and then get stuck because they were playing against Grandmasters. So everybody S rank and above had most of their character roster stuck in S rank, and most of those people had no business being there. So you could be an S++ level player, and it turned out I can go in the lobby head-to-head with S++ level players on occasion if I'm on top of my game. But you're not going to be able to rank up to it because you're going to be playing Grandmasters and S++ players nonstop. So this was an issue. It functionally broke the ranking system, and they have reworked it now so that if somebody is further along in the current letter grade as you, or a higher letter grade, you only lose half of a rank point instead of a full rank point, and you gain 1 no matter what. This allows people to actually move through the ranks and distribute people where they're supposed to be, and I am very grateful for it, and will be happy to experiment with that once work hell is done.
That's good they addressed that.
Yeah, that was it went on for like 6 months, 6 to 8 months. We were stuck with this, where when you queued up in S rank, you might get somebody that's at your appropriate skill level. More than likely, you're getting a grade for an S++ or on an alt, and they just are going to knowledge check you so hard that there's nothing you.
Yeah. Not fun. Not
yeah,
even remotely fun.
Not fun. So yeah. And even Rusty coming back and jumping into ranked, I was able to take the first best of 3 that I played for today's dailies, and that says a lot about where the player base has moved, because I'm nowhere near where I was when I was in practice. So yeah, that's the other thing. I've only put like a couple hours into that with the new character and the new patch. So all good times. Now it's also half off right now, because of the patch coming out. That's all the non-Hoyo stuff. East 8 has been my go-to game for free time this week. Let's see, despite you being across the world. And for Hoyo stuff, so we'll do ZZZ first because nothing's really going on in ZZZ. Just farming, working on Burnice, waiting for new content to come out. Finally got all the stupid items out of Hollow Zero. Don't have to ever go back in there again if I don't want to. Yeah, that's so I've now finished all the missions in the game and got all the investigated things, and I'm just waiting for new stuff to come out in that game. It is entirely possible that I may give it some time to build up some content instead of playing it patch by patch. It depends on how interested I am in the characters as they come out. And even if I do log on to farm, I may just not do the story content to let it build up a little bit. Because I generally prefer to play things in bursts, but we will see with that. Genshin, only the first part of Nahida's birthday was out until today. I think part 2 is out now. And I mentioned the mini games before. They're in the flavor of your typical event mini games, and not a whole lot to talk about there. That game's mostly been in a holding pattern ever since the patch dropped for me, and I finished the Archon quest. Star Rail was the one with this big patch, and Vol has. I have not done the Trailblaze continuance with the story for the current. I have just made it to Pinnaconey, and there are lots of monkeys and bananas, and I am very confused, as I think you're supposed to be. And yeah, I didn't do that until today, because I decided, oh, there's this thing for Simulated Universe in my log. Let me go knock that out first. This was a mistake. Now, there are not a lot of things that will annoy me in these games to the degree that stuff like this does. I have always got onto Hoyo for bad sign. Usually given the advice, just don't read it and push buttons. The new Simulated Universe is the least fun thing for regular content that has been added to any Hoyo game, aside from Imaginarium Theater, that I have ever played. I hate this game mode. So you load up into Simulated Universe, and I'm not going to go into any of the narrative stuff to it, because I was so frustrated I started mashing through parts of it when I was going through, because it was just ticking me off the more I played. There is no getting around having to read the giant walls of text descriptions in this one. You cannot intuit really what they do. It is, and the way it works is you go in and you pick a loadout you want to have preferred. I don't know if this gives it any actual buffs or just a preference towards that type dropping.
It's the same as Blessings. It's just a waiting.
Yeah. Okay. So you go in and you pick a hard archetype of the established archetypes. So you have to use one of the hard archetypes because to fulfill the requirements for triggering these scepters you get. And you're given one to start with at gray rarity. As you progress through, you can upgrade it at shops for 200 and then 500, and you can get more of them as you go through that can be at gray, blue, or yellow rarity, and you can swap them out should you happen to get. Rushing to 3 scepters seems to be the first thing you do, if at all possible, because from about the 3rd run onwards that I did, personal character's choice is totally meaningless. Even for
absolutely not. It's absolutely not meaningless. There are certain combinations that can trigger things far faster than other things can.
So you need to pull the components for that, and if you pull all speed scepters and none of the components that trigger off of follow-up or anything, it does not matter what you put. And this happened to me repeatedly. So I was just stuck, waiting for the stupid scepter to get its turn. Multiple runs. And the components you get feel so terrible to get. They are not clearly signposted in what they do at all, either with their visual indicators. It's very hard to keep track of how many of these stupid things you have at any given time in your head. You have to pull up the stupid list or wait till they drop and make a decision based on that. And what they do and how it's going to translate into an in-game effect is not always clear from reading the descriptions. And furthermore, you are encouraged to get repeats of the same one so that it upgrades into a stronger version of itself. But it just can feel awful getting ones over and over again that, unlike blessings where, okay, that's probably useless, but it might trigger. If you get a component that's garbage, it just can't even go in your scepter. You can re-roll it, but then you gotta sit there at the stupid shop forever, and they are cheap to re-roll, spending minutes of your life just re-rolling these stupid things. It's so frustrating going through this place. And it's because it's all based on the stupid scepters, especially if you get a run stuck with speed scepters and no way to advance their turn or make them go faster. It's like pulling teeth, waiting for these things to get their turn and finally go. And if you don't get enough good components to jack their damage, well, you're gonna be sitting on that boss for a while. I hope Wowo's had her flipping breakfast this morning, because she's gonna be waving her flag until those scepters get their turn for like a gajillion cycles, and you only have so many cycles.
This sounds exactly like what Ho-Yo always do. That is to say, Sunday's going to come out and rescue you from this problem.
Yeah, this
is what Ho-Yo does in every single game they release. Yeah. They will create a massive, insoluble problem with a new game mode that will beat the crap out of most people, and then they'll release a premium character that is the solution to that problem because someone is now an archetype.
My issue with this thing is less that it's hard, because the scepters will eventually get through it, and even though you're limited on the amount of cycles you can do, the scepters can get powerful enough to finally bust through enemies. I have not failed a run yet, although I came awfully close when Aha decided he was going to show up and force me to take a gajillion negative curios and re-roll all my good ones.
He does like that. You're the one who decided you're in a devotee of Aha. You've got to take the tails as well as the heads.
Yeah, but it just doesn't feel good to me waiting on those stupid scepters at all. And even if you can charge them manually, it's still just mostly a waiting game of trying to cram in either ultimates or follow-up attacks or what have you to get the ones that charge in that method to go off.
But that's what you're going to be doing with the team anyway. If you have an ult-based team, you want to use lots of ults. If you have a follow-up attack-based team, you want to use lots of follow-up.
Yeah,
attacks.
but it's
basically the same. Like Divergent Universe does the same thing. Like you're basically you'll use your 3-star equations and you'll be trying to trigger them. That's because they're vastly more powerful than the rest of your repertoire.
Yeah,
this is just the way that it operates.
Divergent Universe has been something I don't really have an opinion on, because the equations are so stupidly powerful and so easy to trigger. I don't ever have to read them, and they will just auto trigger and just win the game for me.
Well, I mean, sure, if you play at the easiest difficulty level, yeah.
I'm at the level 90 +1 one. What I was doing. Whenever a new one pops up with whatever the pre-canned one. Usually,
so that's not even enough to allow them to survive one hit.
Yeah,
that's you're not jacking up the difficulty enough for it to mean anything.
Yeah, so yeah, but far and away, this is a prime example of Ho-Yo writing Wikipedia pages and not making good intuitive descriptors on stuff. I don't know why they did it this way for these stupid components and the scepters, because the scepters all look like the stupid balls in ZZZ, the W engines.
Yeah, now the reason why this is dumb is because they already solved this problem.
Yes, Simulated Universe is fine. It is able to get away with very distinct, unique icons for the various different types. There are not very many of them. There's just one for each Aeon, and they introduce them to you slowly instead of vomiting them all on you at once. Every single type of component that you can get, and there's a lot of them, has its own unique icon. But because you're looking for copies of the exact same one instead of just ones that fit the same category, this becomes an exercise in frustration when trying to quickly glance and see if it's one that you want. Now they do
Can't
put
say I had any such problems.
they do put little tick
I only
marks
did the
next to them.
first round though.
Yeah, they do put little tick marks next to them, but that it's it's just ugh, I'm losing words.
You haven't given me enough words to work out what the actual problem is, though. That's the thing.
I know.
This
I'm
seems to be 100% a gut feel thing, and not a real thing that you can frame in words. So, like, you need to frame it in words so that you can complain to them in the next survey. If you say I don't like it, they won't do anything.
Yeah, well, it's I did not start thinking about it until before the show when Paul hopped on. I was like, oh right, this thing uh, drove me nuts.
So I only
It
did the
just
first 2 rounds, and there was like 0 problems. In fact, it was the problem was the same as with Divergent Universe, in that I didn't actually do any gameplay. I entered a battle, and the enemies evaporated instantly. Like that, that was the problem.
yeah, my issue with it is it what's a good way to put it? There's the few key issues. The first one is clear visual indicators on what the heck stuff actually is, and having so many various types share an icon when you're looking for specific ones instead as you're going through to mush them together to make the higher rarity ones. The fact that speed scepters can just get screwed if you don't get any speed altering effects you can apply to them, and the fact that you can just get components that are dead in the water and it takes forever to sit there at the box and re-roll them to turn
I
them
never
into something.
did that. I never re-rolled anything. I just kept getting more and more and more and more of them. I just built them up until everything I had was gold.
Yeah,
I ignored the. I relied on the magnitude of the numbers to carry me. I didn't re-roll anything.
yeah, a couple of the runs that were going particularly bad, I sat there at that stupid box and was just re-rolling everything that didn't fit, and it takes forever. And yeah, I just when I got the chargeable scepters, it wasn't as bad. Or when I got speed scepters that got a component that let them modify their speed, it wasn't as bad. But when and more often than not, it seemed to happen. And I tried it with a variety of with what teams I could cobble together, which were Acheron with the ultimate one, Acheron with the dot one, and the follow up team. It just I would find myself stuck with speed scepters that I could not meaningfully do anything to make go faster, and they were all of my damage. And so I was just sit here staring at the action bar, waiting on these things to show up, and it felt very, very, very uninteractive in gameplay, and like my decisions didn't matter. Especially because as I was going through, my pool of components was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So the chances of getting dead draws seemed to get also bigger and bigger. So, yeah, because even if you get a crap blessing in Simulated Universe, like you will get it and be like, okay, I don't have any characters that shield me now with this preservation grade piece of trash I got, but maybe I'll get something that auto shields me later, or maybe something will come along, or you might get something like one of the ones that triggers on freeze. Well, maybe there'll be an enemy that'll cause freeze. This may not be totally useful, and it's active. It's something that I can count on being there. It may be garbage or unusable actively by you at the time, but it has a potential future where it's usable. If your scepter can't equip a dead component, it's just a dead component. And this feeling of getting dead component after dead component when stuck with scepters and no way to make their actions go any faster or hit any harder, it's just a very frustrating feeling, and that's the best way I can put it into words. Is those
need
issues
to communicate that, because like I didn't experience any of these issues because I only played at the low level, and at the low level they give you exclusively charge based ones, and they have curated the selection of available components so that everything that you get is applicable. Everything. There are no exceptions. You can use all of it.
Yeah.
It's just a question of whether you want to emphasize stability over a longer run or put everything all power to the front guns.
Yeah, I did not. I might have experienced that my first time, but it was definitely a negative game feel immediately with me. So I don't remember my first run very much, and it just seemed to compound for me from there as the little issues I went over just added up as I went through. It's uh it's not a game mode I will be returning to after I get the quest set on my log. But yeah. So yeah, that's Star Rail. I did not do the continuance yet because I put my my time into bursting through Divergent Universe, and then I still have not finished that yet, even, and seems to want quite a few runs to be able to get it out of your log. I'm thinking they're going to make you get all 20 uh, little chapters for clearing a floor
They've never asked for that before.
at the rate it's going.
They've never asked for anything even near that before, so I doubt it.
But I've got 12 out of 20, and it's still in my log.
Oh, maybe they just still want it there. Maybe it's not tied to that at all. Maybe it's tied to something entirely different that you haven't been attending to.
Yeah. But it just says continue exploring Divergent Universe or whatever. That's the only quest objective. So yeah, I have not been not very sanguine on that, but eventually it will be able to go away and never come back. I have not looked at the rest of the community's opinion on this to see what they have to say about it because I don't follow
Well,
the Hoyo
they
community.
went through various multiple rounds of tuning in the other simulated universe to shore up things that felt bad.
Yeah.
Like it's not in its launch state. They've adjusted things continuously, patch over patch over patch.
Yeah.
Because I spent a reasonable amount of time in simulated universe back when it was the only way to farm those last 2 slots for your characters. And in the original original incarnation, there were some awful combinations of things that just didn't make any sense that you would get forced into and basically couldn't progress and have to scrap the run. And those have all been cleaned up now. It just basically doesn't happen anymore.
So maybe it'll get a few passes and become better. But first impressions for me were
You've got to keep in mind, like, this is one of those things where you've got to deal with this sort of weird stochastic situation where you're trying to design a system that balances itself out over dozens and dozens of runs and on a population scale over millions of runs being conducted by players all over the world. You can't really gather good data on that yourself as a developer. You simply don't have the magnitude necessary to do it because it's all randomly generated. It's only once you turn it out into the wild that you start to see the real problems with it.
Yeah, so we'll see with it. But for now, I'm as soon as that quest is out of my life, I'll be putting it on hold.
I'll see how it goes when I attempt to do it and see maybe there's like one fact that you've missed that makes everything work, because occasionally things can be like that if I had just been paying attention, there's actually this dead giveaway that makes everything visible on site, like recognizable on site or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
All right, guys. Well, that's probably a good time then. I do need to bounce.
all right.
So,
all right, drive safely, Fern. Don't catch fire while you're out there.
I'd rather not. Yes, and I will see you all next week.
All right, later.
Don't let anybody barf in your back seat.
Again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Probably do transdomain while he's on. While we continue talking.
I'm waiting to see how long it'll take for it to kick me from the game.
Back to the
That's taking too long. I need to drop manually.
I still have amp with me from Fern's World. So yeah, I'm not going to comment too much on it because it's going to be out of my life as soon as I don't as soon as the quest is gone. So but yeah, first impressions for me were not good. Let's see. That's really all I did for stuff. Was a little bit of the new simulated universe mode. Just my dailies basically. The other Hoyo games, and put most of my time into trying to get through Piece 8. I do not know why I'm on a map.
On a mission to find that guy's Kuth.
Oh, I was. Turbocharged Nahida. Obvious. True. Brenda make head scrat. Oh, it's got to be effing
He's done.
Barbara.
Barbara. The only one that can zero out my damage by bursting at the wrong time.
Yeah, well. More HP, and we get.
She heals so hard that she heals the boss.
So yeah. Okay. For the rest of my week, I don't really.
Oh dear. So what do we move on to now?
So, I do not have anything at all in the news bracket.
I didn't see anything worth talking about at all week. It's like, and it's basically that, like, normally I get my tip-offs of things on what people are blathering about on the Twitter, right? But all anybody's talking about is US electoral politics.
Yeah.
Nothing is happening to the rest of the freaking planet as far as the algorithm is concerned. Because the algorithm is just going to promote whatever people are talking about the most.
Also, Musk is on the ball for the election.
Well, Musk doesn't operate the algorithm. Like, he just owns the company. So
I'm going to choose to believe that he is trying to help. Far away to take that actually. Yeah. As far as the games industry goes, there just ain't been a whole lot of news. This voice actor strike is apparently in negotiations again, so that may be coming back.
Because they're all bad at saving and they're starting to run out of money.
Yeah. So yeah, I saw that Paimon's voice actress, both her and her husband are voice actors. Now Paimon still has a job because she's not with one of the companies that is being struck right now. But her husband's out of a job.
I mean, I'm not unsympathetic on the count of the AI thing. Like, I don't really like the idea that, oh well, the company can own the rights to a simulation of your voice based on samples that you have inadvertently given them throughout the course of your work with them. Like, that seems kind of grotesque to me. Like, I'm not exactly a libertarian or anything, but something about that feels grimy to me.
Yeah, I can get behind not wanting that. If they were just going for that, I think they got other crap they're trying to get along with it, like better pay and stuff in there as well. If they drop all that and just focus on the AI stuff, I won't have a problem with it. But yeah, it's a mess with them. I don't really know what they can do to make the companies say, yeah, we won't do that are not playing ball, because the companies already have their voice samples. and they
Well, I
could.
mean, this should be the sort of thing that they need to be acting in acting on the legislative bodies, not trying to solve it at the end of everything.
Yeah, it does not seem like a strike is the most effective way to strong arm these companies into doing this.
Especially when you've got a reputation for striking. Like at some point, like strikes require you to look like the underdog, right? If you strike every season, like the voice actors seem to, people are just gonna put it down to, oh, they're just whinging again. They're probably just lazy. Like it doesn't really matter if the people who understand the issue are sympathetic. If the vast majority of people are like, we don't care about these people. I'm sick of hearing from them. Just hire some scabs and get the job done.
Yeah. The funny part is, if these companies do hire outside of the union, they almost always get better actors, even if it's just randos.
Yeah,
Like,
well, and they've been riding the nepotism gravy train for so long. Like, it's not the reason why they have to strike all the time, why their industrial action never seems to be very successful, is because none of them have any talents that's worth the money they're asking for most of the time. Like the ones that are striking, usually the ones who are absolutely shite at their job and just been riding the gravy train.
yeah,
I mean, I still think that they should not have to be concerned about having, their livelihood stolen by AI because they've accidentally left behind enough material to simulate their voice. Like that seems really grotesque, but realistically, I have no sympathy for them if it turns out, oh, actually, there's somebody better and we can just use them instead. Like
yeah,
that particular outcome, I am perfectly all right with. If you're striking and they hire somebody better and aren't interested in using your voice anymore, well, too bad, too bad.
yeah,
You should have been better at your job. You should have been less obnoxious.
yeah, and
Because
that's
all you really need to do to secure your position in the Western market is to have a reputation and a community that really want to see you participating in it, as opposed to somebody else. And the Western voice actors have always tried to take this approach, but again, they're just not very good at it because they're such horrible people generally.
yeah. Well,
They
it's
haven't really cultivated the PR necessary to take that approach, but they think that they have.
yeah. Well, it's very frustrating with the Western voice actors in particular, especially the union ones that are currently striking right now, and why I'm so hesitant to give any sympathy to them. So it would probably be bad if companies get the rights to use AI willy nilly like that for all industries. the The simple fact is they don't compete in anything resembling a meritocratic environment. They are totally nepotistic, and all that matters is that they've got their foot in the door and are part of that union. And
Yeah, and that's the problem with unions in a nutshell, really. Like the market is distorted because I mean, let's say that their worst nightmares come to pass. All of their efforts are for naught, and AI generated voice samples become the norm. Well, there's not really any reason to believe that won't actually lead to a worse outcome than having those twits continuing to do the job. Because if that's the voice samples that they're working from, well, I mean, can you necessarily make it do a good job? They weren't good at their job to begin with. Can the AI do a better job or not? It's hard to say.
it's synthesized AI voice is getting better and better every year. It just
Yeah, but is synthesized Bryce Pappenbrook actually good?
no, well, probably not. I don't know. I don't know what that sounds like. But
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's still working from the same material, right? AI ultimately can't create anything; it can only copy. And Bryce Pappenbrook is a totally flat actor.
yeah, it's a mess with it. It seems like something that is just kind of because of the union. I feel like this would be better handled, and somebody would have more leverage in dealing with this problem if they were a new voice actor signing up, which the union basically doesn't allow because you have to go through the union, and you stipulate in your contract they can't do that. if that became a standard ask that you did whenever you got employed, it would make and every voice actor just started doing it independently. That would be the best scenario uh, for dealing with the issue. And then the other one is unfortunately the legislature. What other boss do we need to kill? Jeff.
Oh boy.
And we have known automation and AI is coming for a while now, and I don't see a way around it reasonably without getting governmental bodies involved. I cannot personally think of a solution to the problem. Conan will not heal, and we need Nahida to kill
Hang on.
the Turk.
I don't really have it worth a damn in this fight. That's the fight is so obnoxious.
If we had something,
everything is lightning immune. Forgot.
if we had something other than Nahida that could kill the Turpits, there really is
Nothing
the best
can.
thing. It's either Cryo or Dendro. Those are the only two things that can bop the Turpits.
But there are almost no cryo damage dealers in the game, and there are almost no Dendro damage dealers in the game, and cryo is lol.
Yeah, and furthermore, the Dendro character has to be able to hit in the air. So you got like Tainari and Nahida.
My Tainari is level 40. This is not going to be sufficient.
Yeah.
I don't have anything that I can bring to the table at all.
Just
I can do physical damage with Fischl. Basically nothing on the ledger.
Yeah, we seem to have this discussion every time we go to Jeff.
It's because there is no good solution.
Yeah,
that's the problem. There's no good solution. There's no thing that works.
There's a point in this fight where 3 Turpits spawn way high up in the air that are electro-aligned, and you have to hit them with Cryo or Dendro to kill them in time to stop all on-field active characters from getting one shot and get the free DPS phase in phase 2. And so this means Nahida has to come.
It's just nothing I can do. It's just not.
Even the power of our blooms.
It's that bloom DPS, yo.
A Nailu when you need her.
I'm always a little bit tempted to pull for Nailu when she comes up.
I am too.
Just a little bit.
But I never have the resources when she comes around.
Yeah, well, she works in exactly one team.
She is the team.
She's an absolute ray of sunshine as a character. Like, she's got protagonist vibes. But it's not really good for anything except for that bloom team.
It apparently isn't terrible, but it's all she can do.
Oh dear.
All them blooms. Yes.
Oh, Jeff. Yeah, I haven't seen anything else worth really talking about. It's just been there are still things happening, but they're all sort of like the various like decay states for the industry. Like, oh, stuff is happening, but it's like it's the rot that you can see setting in. It's not something new or interesting or dramatic that's taking place. It's just decay. It's like a slow decomposition of the industry that we know as it goes into its sort of crash state.
Yeah. It's it hopefully once it finishes its descent down to Earth, it will and finally just crashes and burns completely. things will get better for us. Rabbit, why didn't you shoot? I swear, with these toggled abilities where you swap your action, sometimes it feels like it just doesn't go off.
Yeah, I get that feeling often myself.
Yeah, and you can't even hold the charge for from the previous phase and take it into this one to kill the airborne turpits. Oh. I accidentally dashed with Nahida. That was almost a terrible disaster. I didn't have enough.
Enjoy having my
Having your what?
enjoy having my DPS halved due to my inability to make constructs in this fight. Because I guess they still hate Geo at least that much.
Hopefully the. I mean, at least we can do the fight cleanly now. There's no real way to make that thing go faster because we have to drag Nahida along, and we can't use the standard Electro team because it's an Electro boss.
This is why everybody likes DPS on field Nahida.
For killing Jeff.
Well, you got to kill Jeff a lot. Everybody seems to want Jeff parts.
Yeah, a whole bunch of the big characters do. And Zalonin now. So yeah, there just ain't a whole lot to talk about in terms of stuff. The next week will be swallowed up by the election itself.
Yeah, there won't be any news visible, let alone actually happening.
We'll keep our eye.
Honestly, the business world is going to be basically their future will be determined as well. Like confidence for investment and that type of thing is also going to depend on the election.
Yeah, it's I've noticed people saying they're getting closer to orders more frequently lately. No triggers pulled yet on any big jobs, but a couple customers mentioning to me that they're getting close to having their customer say give them the go ahead. The more that it looks like Trump's going to win, or the more the polls reflect, not the polls, but the bookies reflect Trump winning.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a precedent for it being a safer economic environment.
Yeah, I was definitely doing much better when he was in office. I think everybody was. So yeah, I do want to put that MPP together. It's going to. I don't know how awake I am tonight to be able to sit there and chew through getting stuff together for it. We can try and do some planning tomorrow. Set up a day to record it. And we'll see where we get with it. Because unfortunately for media news, aside from the media we're personally doing, there just ain't a whole lot that's going to penetrate the wall of Trump and Kamabla.
Why have you picked this new nickname?
Because it's the most fun one to say.
Because I haven't seen this one anywhere until you brought it to me.
Because his word, it sounds just fun. It gives me a vibe of her word salad that she said all the time.
I've seen a lot of arguments over exactly how dumb she is. Like, at what threshold of dumb is she operating? Is she like actually mentally challenged level of operation, or at the level of sort of like normie intellect? I guess it depends on your impression of normies. Like, I don't know what the average level of intellect is in the United States.
Yeah. Don't know.
But yeah, there's basically there's not a great deal to talk about because everything's getting snowed and we're basically turning into a Ho-Yo show because Ho-Yo keeps pumping out content come rain or shine, effectively, which is unlike most other companies which are pretty much resting on their laurels these days. I mean, the Monster Hunter Wilds beta is going to be out soon. The open beta that Capcom always does for Monster Hunter games. But yeah, and I guess we'll get to see some more impressions on how that goes. I hadn't.
You are really far
planned
from
on
your mic all of a
participating,
sudden,
but-
and it's
Oh,
really.
no, I'm not actually far from my mic. I am exactly. I'm exactly half an inch further from my mic, but I moved the direction that my mic was relative to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it was.
So I was speaking into the back half of the mic rather than the front half of the mic, effectively.
Yeah, because all of a
because I
sudden
moved it
my
slightly.
my audio levels were going. We can barely hear this. Yeah. Well, we've always
Slightly.
focused on whatever our particular active piece of media. Right now, that's the Hoyo.
Yeah, but we've also always striven to cover what's going on. But the thing is that what's going on currently is either the decay of the industry as a whole or trivium, basically.
Yeah. Or stuff just totally outside of our wheelhouse. Yeah. And I just don't have any faith in Western developers anymore. Not even the indie ones anymore. Like, I'll give Japanese companies a shot. I'm still loyal to Falcom because they generally produce good products, even if they're an entry in one of their franchises isn't at its best. It's still miles better than what a Western studio puts out. Like, I'll still give most Cygames stuff a look because they're usually pretty competent at what they put together if it's interesting. And their stuff with Grand Blue has been fun lately. I'll give I'll give a whole lot of Japanese and I guess Hoyo as well now games a shot. But for Western games, somebody has to come to me and tell me it's good. Like for me to even look
Yeah.
at it.
Well, everything's too expensive to blind try on the larger side of things, and on the smaller side of things, a lot of them are like knockoffs or just sort of. I feel like indie has moved out of being almost definitionally experimental into being almost definitionally slop at this point.
We're just seeing iterative, not even iterative, just reskinned genre type. Like there's a ton of trash Metroidvanias out that are
Yeah, I mean,
just
the thing is that they
Metroidvanias.
might have talent in there. Like you might have a Metroidvania that has a really talented music guy on it or something. But they're attached to this slot product that is. It might be competent as a Metroidvania, but it's only competent, and therefore it is only worth playing in the vacuum where you haven't already played that game before. And so many things in that space are like this now. They have basically converged on a similar sort of position to AAA, except at a different scale. That's all.
Just how easy is it to program the art assets?
Yeah, I do my due diligence, and I'm every week I'm flicking through like Yumatsu or somebody to see, is there a latching point here? Is any of these things like the tip of the iceberg of a bigger topic or something like that? And it's like, well, no, this it's like sequel, remake, DLC, rumor, sequel, remake, sequel,
Yeah,
spin-off.
that's the other thing is the remake, remaster, whatever the particular buzzword they use for that particular game is. Uh, we're drowning in so many of them. I just don't care when I see that word anymore. The game immediately goes off my radar.
Yeah, I mean, we're all waiting to see, Veilguard crater. Like, and it's going to be amusing, and there's going to be screeching, but it's going to be the same as all the others in the end. Like, it'll crater, and it probably won't do enough damage to kill BioWare because lots and lots of people pre-order that crap for some reason, and so on. Like, I didn't. Okay, so we know that the games industry is rotting, and this is evidence that it's continuing to rot. But is it really news? Everybody knows that Veilguard is going to be a travesty. I mean, the normies who aren't thinking about quality at all, but have only seen the Dragon Age name and want to play it because it's the new Dragon Age game, they're going to pad the coffers enough to keep BioWare in business because they were always going to buy it. Even if they don't have a lot of faith in it, there is just a lot of people who will buy it because and hope that it's good against all odds. But the thing is going to continue the way it always has. They might rest the franchise if it does poorly enough, but they're not going to change their disposition towards their work, which is what would need to happen. Which is why there's so many people hoping for a crash, because they recognize that the system as it exists has to be abolished and rebuilt from the ground up. Like, this is, on the same scale as everything else. It's like the debt situation worldwide is unsalvageable, so financial crash is inevitable. You just want to sort of pad the explosion enough that you're not going to be killed by it. Like, that's pretty much all that you can do. That's the same with the political situation in most of the West. Like, everything is rotting beyond recall. You just need to survive the crash. Video games are no different. There's no way back from where they are at present. There's too much money being made off of slop.
Yeah, it's until specifically the individuals that are currently working in the industry and are in their very complacent jobs, that are the creative forces behind, I say creative with the biggest air quotes in the world, this garbage, are all just out of a job because they have made so much negative money that they can't stay employed even if the company wants to keep them around. We're just going to be stuck. We need everything to crater, and that's going to take time, and it's not going to be a big kaboom like everybody envisions when they hear the word crash. It's going to be a slow petering out, I think, and a very sudden small thunk at the end.
That's the reason I keep using the word rot, because it's rotting. It's decaying by degrees. It's breaking down. It's turning into something, ruined and unrecognizable. But it's doing so by degrees, so you can still see the shape of the thing, but it's falling apart. And nobody seems to want to stop it.
Yeah, well,
because there is just the people who feel that it needs to fall apart, and the people who just want to pillage the battlefield, or the corpses on the battlefield, until they've made as much money as they're comfortable with, and then they'll take off.
The games industry at large in the U.S., it's almost entirely in California, which is completely creatively devoid and totally ideologically taken over. And everywhere else there is a major game studio is outside of the U.S., but still in the West, pretty much falls under the same boat. They believe all the same stuff the Californians do. They are completely ideologically poisoned and taken over, and are creatively bankrupt. California may be a step further gone than the other places, because California will never cease to surprise you with just how far gone it is. Maybe France is worse off. I haven't checked lately. Are they still alive, or are they all been stabbed?
They're sort of they're doing what most of Europe is, which is turning down the hard right road a little bit at a time. The French have a habit of rioting at the drop of a hat. It's just a matter of when will the riot happen that is so big that they end up having another French Revolution.
Yeah, but yeah.
So they as a nation, their disposition is starting to shift. Most of the things that are characteristically post-French these days come out of Quebec, not out of France.
Yeah, and Canada also is talk about a failed state. Canada is so far into its rot. That whole country seems like any day now it could just totally break down. Although the Canadian people and culture seems to have let it hold on, because those people must breathe soy. Not a bit of spine on most of them.
I think that they have the same division that they do in the United States, because they have a couple of really positive urban centers, and then they have the rest of the country that keeps them fed.
Yeah,
it's like that in most places, especially countries of sufficient scale that you can have more than one culture.
Canada's harder to parse with its rural areas, I guess, because there's such a divide due to the language barrier from the French and from the French slash English dual language areas to the French exclusive areas to the English only areas. But it's all still treated as one country.
Yeah, I think most of Canada's more rural areas are going to be posed in the way like Alaska is posed, and that it's basically like that because of low political engagement out in the sticks. But yeah, so if you look at the way the video games go now, there's not really anybody making anything to speak of. Like all of the outside the West countries, as they rush to fill the void, they're going to go down the slop road as well. Like all of the Chinese studios are going to converge on a formula and start making the same game because they're trying to do so at an accelerated pace as a void opens up in the market. Because as the rot sets in, it's going to get faster and faster as time goes by, and the Chinese studios are going to try and fill that gap, but they're going to try and do it at pace, at a very, very fast pace. And there's not going to be time for creativity to take place in that context. If you look at what is actually sort of what shifts the Western discourse in video games these days, it's not somebody has made this cool new game a lot of the time. Like sometimes it is, like the most recent one being Black Myth Wukong, which captured the imaginations of a lot of people, and then it fell off in its due time because it's a single player game with a start, a middle, and an end. Much to the confusing glee of the people who didn't like it. Like they're all gloating that there aren't that many people playing it now, and it's like, well,
Single player
yeah,
game.
they finished it. What do you? I guess that just goes to show how used to the games as a service thing that particular demographic is. But if you look at the discourse as it currently exists, what has captured the discourse? It's Dragon Ball again. And what's the reason for this? It's because people love Dragon Ball. It's not because people love the video game. People love Dragon Ball. They love them some Dragon Ball. There are massive demographics that love them some Dragon Ball.
Their name is South America.
But that's where all the discourse on social media is. It's all people talking about Dragon Ball. Nobody's talking about other video games. Nobody has any faith in any other video games. They're not looking forward to any other video games. There was a little bit of a surge for the new Space Marine game because a lot of people sort of encountering 40k for the first time through that, but it's really there's really not much else, to be totally honest. Like most of the discussion online that happens about video games is no longer about a video game that is cool. They're always about, oh, this video game could have been cool, but it's not because they ruined it.
I have not cut single player games out and will move my mobile games onto maintenance mode way more readily after I've met my goals in them. But so I will still experience the occasional single player game, but it's not new single player. It's me going through my backlog.
Yeah, the backlog is gargantuan. Like there's heaps of games on my backlog that I'd love to play when I've got time to do it, and I don't think I ever will. But so they'll sit there forever. But that basically means that I register all of the new ones as irrelevant. Like that new Atlas game. Like I haven't even felt a twinge of wanting to play it.
Yeah, no, I have heard people say good things, and I've heard people say it's mediocre. But I've got too many games in the backlog with stories I want to experience, and I have no way of knowing whether or not this one's particular story is worth experiencing over those. And yeah, it's it would have to take it's one of those where even though it's not a Western studio making it, it would take somebody coming to me and giving me a personal account to move my eyes towards it to consider it. But because that's not something that Fern said he might play it, so maybe we'll hear back from him. That could spark my interest. It would still
He's
take
less jaded than we are.
yeah, but it's one that's just going to need somebody to come out because Atlas has shown quality slip in their products, narratively speaking, And with JRPGs these days, especially, they are not very iterative on their gameplay for the most part. And
Or they're trying to be some other total different genre.
yeah, so what the most important thing for them is how good is the story in it. And if somebody can't come back to me and give me a report with that remains relatively spoiler free, I can't give any particular one the time of day unless it makes enough of a buzz that the buzz itself can get my attention. But there hasn't been one to do that lately.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, that nothing is capturing the imagination of gamers anymore. That like, the only thing was Dragon Ball, and it's because it's Dragon Ball. It's got a special, unique advantage. All you need to do is make a reasonably competent Dragon Ball game, and everybody south of the US southern border is going to play it.
And even people in the U.S., like my Zoomer cousin is playing it. It seems to be really popular with the younger demographic, where other Dragon Ball games didn't really catch on with them for some
I
reason.
mean, props to the late Toriyama. Like, I mean, it doesn't catch on to them for some reason because Dragon Ball's for old people.
Yeah, but this one seems to have grabbed the Zoomers for some reason.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. Like, this is props to Toriyama because he's managed to make something truly enduring. Like, you don't see many properties like this come along very often, where it came out in the 80s and people are still fanatic about it.
Yeah, it's still the trope codifier for so many different aspects of shonen.
Dragon Ball is as old as I am. If I recall, it's 1986 series.
It's older than me.
Like this is how enduring he's managed to make it. But that's a lot of power. It's a big engine to put behind a product. So you can expect it to, occasionally break into the mainstream. But everything else, well, what is there to talk about?
And even with the Dragon Ball game, they're so focused on the Dragon Ball aspect rather than the game aspect. I don't know how the game plays at all. All the buzz that I've seen about it has been, look at this cool character animation.
Yeah, it looks like Tenkaichi. It looks like Budokai Tenkaichi, but I don't know exactly if it actually works like that or not. It just looks like it.
Yeah, it's a mess right now. There just aren't a whole lot of good things to talk about when it comes to gaming news in the media. All we can really do is cover the floor collapses as this building crumbles to dust whenever they happen. At this point, when it comes to the gaming industry, just because they've got to be approaching a point where they've got to start taking risks again. It's sometime within the next 5 or 10 years.
Well, I don't know. I don't know exactly what that looks like though. Like if you look at the titans of tabletop, they've all just decided to go quietly into that good night.
Yeah,
like White Wolf basically might as well not exist anymore. I don't know who owns their properties now. They're not White Wolf anymore, I don't think. But like, Vampire the Masquerade is gone. It got paused and disappeared, and all of those systems only exist as legacy for the people that know the rules, have the old rule books, and play it. Like Wizards of the Coast has basically destroyed their reputation entirely. Everything they come out now is trash and slop. They've been bragging about the new Final Fantasy Magic the Gathering set that they're doing. It's blatantly AI art on the cards. There's heaps of traditional AI mistakes on the art. They are just cheaping out on everything. They have no artistic integrity. They've got no creativity. The entire industry is a joke, and they are just, despite the fact that they are suffering, they're just running it further and further into the ground with each passing day. Like everybody hates new D&D, but they're just running it into the ground because they know that they can keep up the facade by using things like Critical Role to make it seem like D&D is sexy or whatever. But they aren't turning around. They aren't recognizing that there's a problem. Games Workshop is doing the same thing with 40k. Every time they have a blunder, they just stay the course. The consumers will just keep consuming, and it will be fine. Don't worry.
Yeah. Internet plus peak consumer culture has got us kind of stuck with, as far as the normies and their behaviors. But
I mean, our tolerance for the games industry as a whole has been on the wane for years, but I really do feel like for psychological reasons, not necessarily for rationalized reasons, the whole Dawn Trail experience was sort of the corner turn for me, and I just don't care anymore. I'm not interested in hearing about it anymore. The fact that it was absolute shite and everyone came out to defend it. It's like, no, no, no. I know it wasn't what you're saying it was. I know it wasn't as good as you're saying it was because I was there at launch with everybody else. I experienced it with everybody else in that first week, like everybody else, and it was trash, and you're saying it's not, and I know you're lying to me.
yeah, Dawn Trail was a big one that was a part of the recent burn that has made us less and less amenable to the games industry because Final Fantasy XIV was a consistent game for about 3 or 4 years for us, and even if the content was mid, uh, and the story was zero was not good, it was still palatable and it was a consistent and workable place to spend our time. But Dawn Trail was so bad narratively that it broke all that down.
Well, it felt like the writer only had contempt for me. The writer thought I was stupid and would accept anything.
Yeah, and I'm very curious as to what the actual drop off is. We know what Twitter's opinion is because Twitter will never shut up about their opinion, and I'm sure Reddit is mirroring Twitter or even more fanatic. Especially because if you don't praise the game on Reddit, I think the mods will just ban you if you say anything negative. Even the shitpost uh, boards for 14 are incredibly just infused with toxic positivity. But I wonder what the actual player drop off is like for Dawn Trail.
Well, the thing is, this is what's going to be of concern to Yoshi P. Like, he's going to look at those numbers and he is going to care because it is his baby and he does want it to be successful. And he risked turning it over to someone else for a time, and now this is the consequences he's going to reap.
Yeah, it's I gave 16 a fair shot, and I don't think it was a waste of time, but it was not it was so much missed potential that I was just like so close the whole way through, not quite there. That's the
Yeah,
newest.
and I think that it's entirely possible that it shares a cause with Dawn Trail,
Yeah,
and that his attention was split. He wasn't fully committed to one thing or the other.
yeah, but I think 16 definitely seems to have had more of his attention because there's a lot of that.
Oh yeah, because it's a new product. It has to have more attention. There's no structures surrounding it without him. He's the one producing it, so he's got to pay more attention to that. There was no choice. But and you can see that there's way more competence there. But of course, he's starting from scratch, and he's got a loose idea of what he wants to do, and he's moving forward with that. And they miss out on a bunch of things because nobody's managed to do it before. How much decision making power he had over what they were going to do is I don't really know. Like, he could have received from on high, we are going to do the action game thing again, make it work somehow.
Yeah, well, and even regardless of what the edict was that came down and how much freedom he had, he's going to take the most senior and or most experienced to the staff with him for this. If he does pull anybody from the Final Fantasy 14 team, because this is a brand new product, it's going to take a lot more work setting this up
Yeah,
from
and
zero.
you can't risk the early experimentation over time approach because you've got a fixed schedule. There's not going to be heaps of ongoing patches indefinitely into the future where you can revise your ideas again and again and again because it's a going concern. No, you've got to launch it with a bang, secure people's attention, and hold it for the life cycle of the product, and then that's it. You
And
get one shot.
so I can guarantee you that those factors are a reason Post Walker and Dawn Trail are the way they are.
But
But
Dawn Trail is a mess, and I really like. It frustrates me that I know we're never going to know what the internal reaction to the mess is, because it should be cataclysmic. The amount of bad press they got is no small potatoes. Like, laying aside the actual impact as far as numbers and retention and that goes, the negative PR they got was massive.
Yeah.
And they should be trying to reckon with that. There is no way that we're the only people who've completely cooled off on the game narrowly as a result of Dawn Trail and of nothing else.
Yeah, they are down to 41% on Steam for recent reviews. It was at 33, but some of the recent reviews seem to have moved into all reviews from when I last looked.
He's never going to come right out and say, "Oh, it was a huge mess. I hate everything that's happening here. We need to go back to basics and start making a decent story again." Like, that's not. He's never going to say something like that. But it would be nice to be able to get the vibe that they were at least thinking that internally, that they had made a wrong turn and they can't just ride out the wrong turn. They've got to go back to the previous intersection and take the other direction. Because it was not, as a lot of people saying, a good story executed poorly. It is a poor story executed poorly. They didn't know what they were doing. They tried to do everything.
Yeah.
They didn't tell a story that was focused on a particular thing. They just did a bunch of stuff. And that's really the thing. They put a bunch of stuff in that story.
And it was they need to just fire that writer.
Well, put him on a side quest. He can do a side quest.
Well, he did do.
He's fine at that.
Yeah, when we need to introduce the character, get in and out, that you can get away with a structure like that. When you're stretching it over an entire expansion.
Like that it's not just an expansion though, right? That's not how they tell stories. They're trying to leave hooks for the future, right?
Yeah.
But they put in somebody who's never even told a story the length of the game before.
Yeah.
This is the problem. Telling an epic, be it for a whole game or for multiple games, is an absolutely different skill to telling a story that is a side quest or a major quest or even something longer like a post-patch story like Zero, heaven forbid, or maybe a better one like Whirl It. Like, that's a different scale, a different strategy and approach to the storytelling has to be put into play there. Like, Tears of Whirl It was an enjoyable story for sure, but imagine if you had stretched it over the length of X.0 or whatever. It would be an atrocious story.
Up.
It only works because of the pacing.
Yeah. And it does not help that due to the voice actor of Wu Klamau, the entire discussion immediately becomes ideologically poisoned if you talk on any of the most public venues about it.
Well, the thing is that I think that in a very real way these matters are related. Like, you can't not talk about it in ideological terms, because the problem is that that's a man, and that man can't voice a woman. This is the beginning and the end of the story. And it doesn't matter how you feel about that reality, it's still reality. And you can't discuss this very, very pertinent fact.
Yeah, and I know Koji Fox was on 16, and that's why we got the localization we did. I hope that Yoshi P gives him a phone call after they finish 16 and was like, please come back to 14.
I mean, he's only an okay localizer. It's more that everybody else is so bad.
Yeah,
like, he makes some really poor creative decisions as far as writing is concerned as well, historically. But his miss rate is far lower than most of his contemporaries.
Yeah, but we'll take a few speed bumps over a faceplant. If those are our two options. And you can't trust what Yoshi P's been saying about Dawn Trail, because according to a certain farm, the sources that they're pulling from the JP side they are even more irate than we are over this.
They had better be. It's their product in some sense. Like, we are simply participating in the process. They are the home of Final Fantasy, and it is their taste that it should be catering to first, because that's where a lot of the life of the thing comes from. It's from those sensibilities and the collision of those sensibilities with some more Western themes and motifs. Like, it's not supposed to be about what the California crew thinks.
Yeah. The woke West centers of the world have their own unique culture and bubble that is totally incompatible with the rest of it. And when aspects of that creep into a product that has no business holding them, Contrail is what you get. So yeah,
And the thing is that this by if you look at the 10,000 foot view of the games industry, that it's the smallest of blunders, compared to what other people are doing. But this one hit really close to home. This one hit in the backyard of something we're already participating in.
well, it was
And
both. It was
destroyed
both.
something that we were committed to.
Yeah, it was both personal and it was our go-to time sink for the time. It was the active invested product that we were playing. It was the fallback game, the go-to MMO style game that we usually keep in our back pocket for just something to play with people. And when it got hit, that we really felt it, because the game that fits that slot is functionally part of your daily or at least weekly life. Whenever you have a game that fills that slot, I don't know how regular having a game in that slot is these days, because MMOs are not as popular as they used to be. But for us old people that grew up in
Have an attention span longer than 1 minute.
yeah, having that game is very comfortable for us to have in that slot. And when we lost it yet again after losing first World of Warcraft, and then yeah, mostly WoW, but and then seeing the MMO space start dying around it, and finding a refuge in 14 only to see it fall. It did hurt a lot more than some other products falling into this trap, because we had managed to find a safe refuge for a while, even if it was pretty rocky and not very good in the post Endwalker stuff. It was not offensive. It didn't make us mad to think back on the story. It just was Zero had a dumb hat tilt and the story wasn't good. That is not a cancelable offense if done occasionally. The drop my subscription offense that if I didn't have a house, I would already have crossed, is what was just how terrible that story was and how poorly it treated us as players.
Yeah, I actually haven't logged on in ages. I have no idea if I still have my house.
They temporarily paused demolition due to the hurricanes going through the U.S. that knocked power out. I don't know if they're still paused. They did put a hold on it.
I see.
They do that occasionally with natural disasters.
Yeah, I mean, we've beat this horse into the ground, but it's just sort of it's. I brought it up again because it felt like a turning point, because it felt like there was nothing left that I could trust. And I suppose that in a weird way, it also kind of gave me back patience with Hoyoverse and loosened the purse strings on the microtransaction thing, simply because I know what Hoyo is about. They're not going to lie to me anymore. Like, I know they want my money, and they're telling me exactly how they want to get my money. I know their cynical tricks. They do them all the time. Sometimes I'm willing to accept them, and sometimes I'm not, as this business transaction is happening out in the open. And I'm much more willing to take that, because I'm not being actively betrayed every 5 minutes. And because I had assumed that I couldn't be betrayed to the same extent in Final Fantasy XIV, not realizing just what it meant to have Yoshi P not paying attention. Like, it stings. It stings. And I don't really trust other games anymore. Like, it's not. What are they going to do next? Did they hire Sweet Baby to write the story? Like, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. It's like right now the only game we have on our radar is part of a franchise that we already have played and want to see the next step in. So it's an auto buy for us, Monster Hunter, and that's really
it's almost an auto buy. It's almost an auto buy. It would have been an auto buy 12 months ago. I don't know if it's an auto buy anymore. We'll wait and see.
Yeah,
Because I don't know what they might do to it. it's a Capcom product. Sometimes they release complete products. They've got a good track record in Monster Hunter, at least, of releasing reasonably solid products. But this is not the way it was before. This is not, the world is not what it was. The world is not what it was when Monster Hunter World came out. It's not the same. It's not the same anymore. Things have changed. People look at things differently. People behave differently. I'm not really sure what's going on anymore.
Yeah, especially with Capcom now being a post post Inafune Capcom, where he got turfed out for whatever reason it actually was. It's worrying because he was a big advocate for releasing those completed games.
Yeah, so I don't trust anything anymore. Like that was the reason why I was, I had no interest in Metaphor. It was like my first thought was, yeah, but they will do something. They will do something to make me disappointed. They'll do something to obviate whatever could have been good. They'll do something to ruin whatever could have been great. Because they can't help it. Nobody seems to be able to these days. They always do something. They always do something horribly wrong that undermines the entire project. I don't know how and I don't know why, but they always do it. So yeah, I'm sort of a little bit lost in that sense.
I
don't really believe in anybody to make a great game anymore.
I have mostly fallen back on the tried and true strategy of whenever I get stuck in a rut, chew through the backlog. I much prefer to invest in completed products rather than live service products, which is why I'm not as emotionally enthusiastic about the Hoyo games as Fall is. Although, while I may get excited for some characters, I don't have the same level of hype for every little bit of story that comes out for all of them. It just is because I prefer completed products. But I've got a giant backlog of plenty of games that I definitely want to experience and play, that I have had people come to me and tell me are good, or are part of franchises that I know are good, or are games that have looked interesting that definitely seem like they're worth my time narratively or gameplay wise. So I got plenty of them there. I don't need the games industry to exist as a player of Dividia.
Yeah, I don't. If I thought that it needed to exist, I wouldn't be so enthusiastic for its downfall. But I can understand both points of view regarding live service, regarding wanting a product which has a beginning, a middle, and an end. They both logics make sense to me from an emotional standpoint. Like you want the whole product, you want the meal that has been cooked to be complete and perfect. It makes sense to want that, and it also makes sense to want not a live service product, but rather the story that won't stop being told, the adventure that never ends. That's also a logic that is attractive in its own way. That's why we spend so much time in MMOs, because the journey doesn't have to end. You can still find something to do. The world still exists and keeps turning. That makes sense in its own way, even though it's a different way. My enthusiasm springs largely for these Hoyo games in particular, springs largely from the fact that they seem to have an interest in just telling the story. Like that seems to be their objective. Like you've got the money men who want to make their money off of you, but the telling of the story still seems important to them, in sort of sharp contradistinction to the West, where the objective of the story is not to spin a tale. It's to communicate some person's idea.
It's about the message or the idea, man. If it was about the vibes or the feelings, I might be able to get behind that occasionally, but you don't even do that.
There's still stuff like that, like, and you'll be able to smell the whiff of it on the air, though. Whether in say the latest patch for Star Rail, you can smell a whiff of it in the air of ideology, whether it comes from the localizer's spin on the original text or whether it's in the original text. And a lot of it is like traditional anime pablum that's a little bit sort of like modern and liberal, that is sort of like the ground state for modern society. So you can't tell if anybody's actually ideological about it or whether they write that way because they think it's normal. Because there are a lot of things like that, right, that are taken for granted as being the normal state of things, but nobody could tell you why they think it's normal. It's just that, oh, well, they have grown up in this ideology and they are like fish who can't tell what water is. But you can still smell the whiff of it there, but it's not the motivation for the story. The motivation is not to ensure that you come away believing what the writer believed, which is so often the case these days. And you can tell when something cuts through because it'll actually become popular, right? Like, if you look at the Space Marine game, right, that sticks with people because Space Marines live in a hard world, but they are almost by definition heroic when they're not traitors. They are heroic, and that heroic figure, telling the story of the heroic figure, is something which takes place at a deeper level than whatever silly ideology were attempted to paste over top of it. Like, there were people in that writing team for that Space Marine game who decided that they needed to insert girl bosses, and every Warhammer game has this for some reason. They will always insert a girl boss somewhere, improbably, who is, standing shoulder to shoulder with Space Marines for whatever silly reason. So that ideology is always there, but the actual story of heroism that the Space Marine represents is a deeper, more meaningful story that actually resonates. Nobody posts a single screenshot of the game's resident girl boss. They're all posting pictures of the Space Marine leads. That's what they are interested in. That's the actual story people are experiencing, not the one that is attempting to be told through the girl boss. That story just goes over everybody's head because it doesn't have the sort of gravitas that the heroic tale does. But the thing is that most other IPs nowadays actively avoid telling heroic stories. They don't want a hero in the game. They want to get rid of that idea. And so you see these games coming out which have very sort of bizarre main characters who you can't sympathize with at all because they're vessels for ideology. They don't actually have any opinions or goals of their own. And those stories don't stick with anybody. Nobody knows anything about them. And when you try and make it the centerpiece, like, you get things like that, whatchamacallit, that created recently, the one where it's just all about being a horrible woke individual. I can't remember what it was called.
You're gonna have to be way more specific.
The one that everybody was talking about 5 minutes ago.
You mean the only one that comes to mind is Concord?
No, Concord didn't have any story.
Yeah,
so
but
it wasn't Concord.
Yeah, this one.
It was the other one.
Oh,
there was another one that was happening at the exact same time, which was way more egregious than Concord could ever dream of being.
Yeah,
like Concord was positively based by comparison.
Yeah,
but you see, it fades into memory because it's repugnant. There's nothing about it that you can tell, you can discern, other than its wrongness. This fundamental wrongness. No part of it makes sense. No part of it is healthy. It's all poison from top to bottom. And the only way to get stories that are not are, number one, your backlog, and number two, people who have a totally different agenda to that. Like, if you are in China, then the Chinese agenda is to make sure that the reputation of the party is not harmed in any way. Beyond that, they don't really care that much. They just want it to not have anything that's overly societally corrosive. So yeah, there are limitations on what you can depict. But beyond that, they still need to maintain, because they're a country that is decided to absolutely capitalize on nationalism as part of their identity. Like, what China is like. Like, part of supporting the party is making sure you meet the definition of a patriot that the party has set, right? So you've got to be nationalist to a certain extent. What that means is that you need to be able to tell heroic stories so that people can identify with them and become patriotic. If you live in the West, every country hates itself, absolutely despises itself. If you look at it from the perspective of the literati and the artistic establishment and the particular political forces that govern them, they hate themselves. the establishment in the United States, the establishment in Britain, the establishment everywhere else in the Anglosphere, they detest Anglos. The only good thing you can do in a story to anybody who's remotely Anglo-looking is to immiserate and humiliate. It's the only thing you can do. They have to be the bad guy. They have to be pathetic. It's the only option available. So you can't afford, and they are your marketable demographic, so you've got to put them in the game sometimes. So the only thing you can do is tell unheroic stories about them, stories with no gravity whatsoever, with no ability to resonate with the soul whatsoever. You have to tell hollow, empty stories without meaning. That's the only option you've got. And I guess part of what really stings about Dawn Trail is it felt like that story. All of the people that we actually love in that game, the characters that we're familiar with, that we spent time with, all of them are pushed to the back. Your own character pushed to the back. Who is pushed to the front? The diversity hire. It's the same story we're seeing everywhere else.
Yeah, well,
this new person who has no right to take the stage, who has not earned anything, is being made the hero, and the hero is being forced down your throat. Like, the resonance of that is the same as every other story that people find grotesque.
Well, I don't have a lot of confidence for 7.1 to offer an opportunity for course correction. I am curious if Yoshi P realizes just how, because you can't take anything he says about the game, because he has to promote.
Yeah, he has to promote the game. Plus, there's a massive cultural rift between the way we would address things and the way the Japanese do. Like, there is a phenomenon in Japan where they will hire at a business one American for an office for morale reasons, simply because they
they'll
know
go
that
yell at the boss.
the American will voice the things that the other people are bottling up and is destroying them. That's the only way you can find out what people are thinking, is to add the American to the office so they actually talk about it. And this permeates every layer of Japanese corporate society. Is you don't stick out. You don't stick out. You don't say anything out of line. You keep to the party line. You keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times. There's no way he's going to come out and make a splash. But that doesn't mean that there's not going to be a huge amount of internal turmoil as they try and address whatever it was that they are trying to figure out happened.
Yeah. How much of the problem he has identified, I'm not sure. I can't imagine he doesn't realize at all that there's huge narrative shoes that need aborting and correcting. But yeah, I'm curious, because normally I would say, with just a bad expansion, you probably aren't going to see anything fix it in 7.1, 7.2. But
you can't fix a problem this grave overnight.
Yeah,
like they already bet the farm on something that isn't working, but
yeah.
you can see a tactical backing away from unsuccessful things and a tactical moving back on camera things that people actually like.
Yeah,
Like, if you were to release a patch zone which was all basically about bro downs with characters you like, people would receive that as a return to form.
But that's what I mean. I wonder if, even though it's still early in the expansion cycle, the feedback has been so bad. I wonder if there will be some surprises in the 7.1 main story, just to attempt to start course correcting now, because it's so bad. Like, Stormblood did not have a warm reception, but based on the posts I've seen on a certain farm, it was nowhere near like this.
No, it wasn't a calamity. It was just sort of like, oh well, that was not quite the banger that the launch of Heavensward was. That was, they're telling too many different stories. They're going in lots of different directions. Some things seem to happen arbitrarily for no good reason. Like, there were lots of criticisms. It wasn't this sort of like bone deep spitting out the thing that tastes bad. It was for Dawn Trail. It was like you've put something in your mouth, you suddenly realize it's off, and you spit it out. In the case of Stormblood, it's like they ate the meal and it's like that wasn't a great meal.
Meat was a little overcooked, but it wasn't rotten.
Yeah. So there's definitely a very large rift to cross as far as that's concerned. I think that they can do it because they managed to build the game again from complete failure. They know how to navigate those waters where everything is wrong and they don't know how to win people's confidence back. It's been long enough that they've probably earned another pip on that bar that they can attempt to spend. But it's going to take some very careful navigation, and they're going to need to know both who to listen to and who not to listen to, because they're going to have a lot of voices lying to them throughout this process.
Yeah.
You know, all the voices that tell you gamers don't need to be your audience.
They've also got the other issue of the nature of the ever-expanding class roster that has become such a design problem for them in keeping the unique identities of all their classes hanging over their head. And Yoshi P initially said before Dawn Trail launch they would work on that in 8.0, but they've got a much bigger problem to fix than that right now, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, like the classes are much of a muchness. I'm willing to accept a boring class in an MMO. Like if the story and the setting and the environment and the world that you play in really resonates, if it really feels like home, like it used to, like a place to be, as opposed to just a game to play, then it won't. The rest of that stuff won't matter nearly so much. Like that's just minutia. You can groom that over time, patch over patch, if you want. But I have to want to be there for it.
Those are hopes that will increase enthusiasm if met if we are already there. What you have right now is a catastrophic disaster that is getting us to very strongly consider unsubbing despite both the investment and our freaking houses. Well, my house and the guild house, one of which has a significant amount of investment in our subs, and I do not know if they will carry over if the house lapses, and the other one I put a colossal amount of work into decorating. So you are about to lose me despite that.
Yeah, it's all about communication and understanding, and there's way more static on the line than there used to be. If this was like 5 years ago, this would not be taking place. Like there would not be so much noise to signal. There would be no political dimension that's at the forefront of everything. Even a small number of years ago, when that sort of stuff was more receded into the background, it was not the total sole concern of everybody. And it's something that it's a disease that is moving through Japan right now. Like the awareness of it is quite dim. Lotus Seed has actually talked about somebody had translated one of their segments that were talked about Japan a bit into Japanese.
I saw the headline for that video, but I didn't watch it.
They were the Japanese were. The timbre of it seemed like they were actually at once they were annoyed that that a bunch of foreigners seemed to have a better grasp of things than their politicians, but they sort of seemed in some sense also a bit relieved that this is actually a documented phenomenon, that it is actually understood the path that this follows. Therefore, you can if you can characterize it, you can address it if you get it early enough in the process. The Japanese political system is in most respects comically ossified, but that does not evidently prevent it from being infiltrated by the usual globalist slop. And in this case, it is, it's a demographics problem, right? It's the same as everywhere else, except to a slightly different sort of extent and pace in Japan, with their comically aged population. And some bright spark always suggests that you can solve this with immigration, which you can't, of course. Everybody should know that by now. But the Japanese are insular enough that they probably don't recognize the way this issue has affected other countries. Otherwise, you wouldn't get that syndrome where people go to France and it makes them sick. You wouldn't get this sort of like similar syndromes when people go to go to England and are expecting the imaginary England of storybooks, and instead they get London, which has got very few English people in it. It's mainly Indians and
When I
Caribbeans.
when I think of the storybook Britain, it takes me a while to orient that towards a modern Britain of the storybook Britain, and because the first thing I think about is King Arthur. I
Well,
think
the thing is that's and to some extent you sort of I sort of got to grow up there as well, because New Zealand was very closely modelled on England, and the way we were socially structured here was very closely modelled on England, and we are a little bit behind the curve on everything that England does. So growing up, I got to experience this sort of like, rustic countryside living, because I grew up in a town of like 2,000 people grand total, spread over a huge area too. It's a small town population wise, but it's like from end to end is like 5 kilometers.
yeah.
It's not a huge town in terms of people, but the amount of spread out that we are, it was really extensive, and it was like that in a lot of small towns. And so my experience of the world growing up allows me to see contrast with the way things are now and are heading in every direction. Especially now, my current situation is that I live just outside the central business district of one of New Zealand's largest cities. Now, I say larger laughingly, because a large city in New Zealand is sort of funny in most other countries, but it probably doesn't rise to the level of town in other countries. But I can sort of see the social effects of those changes when you look from end to end. And they do play out everywhere, but Japan can see it, and Japan can see these problems they've got available to them now because of the resources of people who are either lie to the political right, or just happen to be anti-establishment, don't like the way the establishment does things. Those resources exist in the West, and therefore when the Japanese encounter the same phenomena trying to obstruct their culture, they can tap into those resources, because that story has already been told. Like, Japan is not where Britain is yet. They can see the future. They are the ones who get to have clairvoyance EX this time.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of whether or not they use it. And seeing the absurdity that things like the ride or dies for Work Lamart, like seeing the absurdity of those people and their inability to understand critique, their inability to understand that not everybody is willing to like a character because they vaguely signal some political affiliation due to who was cast to do the voice or whatever. Like, the madness of that still looks like madness in Japan. So there is a chance that in Japan they will be able to forestall it becoming too metastatic. The problem is that the money men up the top will be looking at, we need to kowtow to the West. What does the West mean to us? Well, our example of the West is Sony of America. What's Sony of America? Well, it's the most paused entertainment company in the world.
Well, it's more worrying with them looking to the West, because you cannot get the Gen Pop opinion on Dawn Trail unless you go outside of the mainstream websites, because they are so locked into their subculture of this everything about the game must be good, and they are so ideologically poisoned by the California mindset that they will start just defending Wuklamaw because of my trans signals.
Well, the thing is that the West doesn't have a Famitsu, right? And Yoshi P knows this. If Yoshi P thought that he needed the magazines, he would do interviews with Western magazines way more often than he does. The reality is he does his interviews with Famitsu, and the rest of his projecting into the West he does via YouTube, direct to customer. Like, what does it mean in the West to be a mainstream gaming news outlet? Because it sure doesn't mean anybody reads you. What it means is that you have people working for your company who have access due to knowing people in the Western gaming industry. This doesn't apply to the East. the people in the mainstream Western gaming edifice don't know anybody in the East. So that's not really an issue. Like, the only one that's like, whatchamacallit, Brandon Orselli from Niche Gamer is like buds with the guy that made No More Heroes. That's about it. That's the extent. That's access. That's all the access that the West has to the East is basically non-existent. And now that you've got Sony of America, which has effectively committed a coup to replace Sony of Japan as Sony, is now the gateway to the East for the West, and the gateway to the West for the East, as far as large scale games are concerned. Like, that access, that communication has basically been strangled, and you know the whole producers letter live thing exists because they know that there is no reach obtained from IGN or GameSpot or PC Games. Does GameSpot still exist? I don't even freaking know.
I think they merged with somebody. They might still exist. Let's find out.
But like, these particular
Yes, they still exist. They still exist, and holy crap, their website looks terrible.
I don't know who's putting money into these things, but they can't be turning much coin.
Right.
It's probably they're making money off of advertisers who have not yet realized that nobody reads those things. So it's probably almost kind of like a vestigial stump. Like, they gain their funding due to advertising, and the advertising comes from companies that are sort of in bed with them to a certain extent, like, you know, Western gaming companies that want full site integration to advertise their game, and they just happen to have known people or had affairs with people who work there or whatever.
This is Alexander.
That's the way it seems to go in the West, and so it's just basically an incestuous flow of money. Or alternatively, companies who just don't realize that nobody spends any time looking at these sites, and so what's a small ad spend to them is just a drop in the bucket compared to the scale of their advertising budget.
Right.
So they keep funding these sites on automatic.
So just to get a picture of it, I went to GameSpot's YouTube channel, and they sure do release a whole lot of videos still, but they rarely break 15K views.
And they've probably got the algorithm helping them get there as well.
Yeah, and they have 5.5 million subscribers.
Well, subscriber numbers doesn't really mean.
Well, that's what I mean. This doesn't.
Most of those are going to be inactive accounts.
Inactive or paid for bots, because we know these companies will do that to inflate their numbers. Fairly easy thing to do and not get caught. So that was also the autoplay sound you just heard. Was they had their stupid YouTube channel on autoplay. If we go with the more popular one than that one, let's go to this one. Let's go to IGN.
IGN still, like, their name gets a lot of play. Although every time I see their name, it's usually somebody objecting to some retarded score that they've given. Like, they seem to be sort of like serving as the Rotten Tomatoes, I guess.
Yeah, but
like,
we're
still stacking the numbers.
We're still hanging around 10 to 30K for non-reviews. Do they have a playlist of their reviews? Oh goodness, they have so much garbage here for playlists. I just want the most recent few IGN reviews to look at data, YouTube.
Don't worry, they'll be the only thing in your algorithm mentions from now on.
I'm doing it on the show account.
Oh, okay.
So
nobody uses that.
So, let's see. It looks like even their reviews are lucky to break 100K.
And they're going to be the most promoted online.
Okay, IGN
review is sort of like the canonical review as far as algorithms are concerned.
The games that manage to break the public discoursosphere, like your Star Wars Outlaws, got 800K reviews, but that one seems to be a pretty big outlier. Dragon Ball Sparking games. Oh, that's GameSpot. Let's see how much the Dragon Ball Sparking review has on 273K views. That is not a lot for how big the people like to pretend these guys have. Arcane
Yeah,
seems to be one of the most talked about games right now.
Yeah, so if that's the best that they can do when they are the review that the algorithm is going to put forward as the review, like, let's see, if I just type, oh, I don't want to type this on my account, but I mean, let's see if I'll just go into to incognito. That might help, since I'm just going to do a search. Come on. Right, I'm signed out. Okay. If I just type Dragon Ball Barking Review, who comes up? Is it IGN? Yes, IGN is at the top. So IGN have 273k. GameSpot have 148k.
GameRinks has almost 1 million on their before you buy review.
I don't know who they are.
They're well, that's the thing. You'd never hear about them, and they're usually better than IGN and the like of the super mainstream, but they're still a mainstream reviewer site.
But if I look at what the big talking heads are getting, like that guy with the long hair who's on all these videos, he's got 1.4 million. Like that, the individual people have an order of magnitude more reach than the big sites. The Eurogamer has 15k.
I forget.
Freaking Saiyan Scholar, the guy who just cares about talking about Dragon Ball all the time, has 52k on his review. Osmond Gold has 626k.
Yeah. Anyway,
Freaking Donkey has 1.3 million.
I would not call anything Donkey does informative. I would call it a lot of things. Informative is
But the
not one
thing
of
is
them.
that people are watching it though. People are watching it. People are not watching IGN by comparison. They're not watching GameSpot. They're definitely not watching Eurogamer. So this is what it means to be mainstream, and the fact that creative business unit, whatever number they are, 3, 2, 3, 1, I don't remember. The fact that Yoshi P's team have always done their outreach and their publicity themselves on YouTube suggests to me that they understand that. They're not going to be listening to the opinions of the mainstream because they're going to understand that they don't have any reach.
Yeah, my issue here is the medium through which the West will be able to make the messages public enough for somebody to translate it and send it to Yoshi P will be areas that are so hostile to negativity or so censorious in their nature that the actual problems with that the most of the Western player base has with the story will never ever make their way to Yoshi P's ears intact, especially because of the ideological poisoning.
What I think that would happen though is that they will have metrics. They will be looking at metrics. They will be looking at engagement. They will be looking at how and where the drop off happened, and they will be probably using, because they will be looking at the Japanese player base in much closer detail. They will be probably using that as a model to explain the perturbations and the numbers in the West as well. Even though they know that they're two different markets that behave in different ways to different things, if you see a sharp drop in both markets, you're going to be probably assuming that there's going to be some related reasons. Even if they're not exactly the same, there'll be a relationship between those things. And they do have a lot of data on Japan. And when it comes to the Japanese netizens, they're not very reticent. And the company that is Square Enix knows to go directly there because that culture is an understood thing there. It's not bifurcated into the woke version and the non-woke version the way it is in the West.
Yeah. But as far as personal peace of mind for the moment goes, in terms of identifying opinions, from what the sites of ill repute that you will get arrested if you go to say, and the places they link of similar nature, both in the East, well, and mostly in the West for ill repute, but just in general for the East, it seems everybody in Japan speaks staunch. the vast majority of people are not happy with it. And anybody actively discussing it in an environment that'll let them vent their actual feelings out quickly snowballs into a sigh of relief, and everybody just starts dunking on how terrible it was and how much they hate everything about it.
Yeah, and I've seen this on the official forums as well, and it's not being censored or anything. The official English forums, like, people are very tactical about the way they express themselves. You can sort of almost hear them smacking their lips as they ponder what word they can use that's not going to get them cancelled, but they are still very openly criticizing it. And they will usually venture to make some suggested uh, compliments to offset the criticisms, but those will usually get dunked on immediately. So, but yeah, so even on the official forums in the English speaking boards, there is still a lot of criticism that has taken place about that. It's definitely not of the tone and tenor that you would get on the Japanese ones, but there is a sense of that is not due to a different reception, but to straight up fear. They don't know how people will react if they say this.
They are genuinely afraid of social consequences or criticizing the game that has a person of penis persuasion voicing the lead lady, the expansion.
Yeah, it feels very reminiscent of people being afraid of offending the CCP.
Yeah. We are at 3.5 hours.
Alrighty, we've stretched and blathered enough then, I guess.
Yep. Leave you with Nahida on the swing set as she goes, "You must pull me." Florinda can cover. Alright. We will see you guys next time. You got anything for us in this out for goodsies?
No, I'm just counting down the seconds till